What's up, San Diego?
San Diego, turn it up. From the dugout to the sidelines, from the front office to the fan in the stands, this is where San Diego sports comes to be heard.
College athletics is the gift that keeps on giving. This is why I love this stuff.
He's not just talking about the game, he's driving the conversation, breaking it down, calling it out, and saying what everyone else won't.
They start licking their chops, man, when they hear like, oh, look at all these guys the Padres could potentially trade.
This is the voice San Diego sports trusts on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
We're your favorite show's favorite show.
This is the Braden Surprenant Show.
Think about the children, the family show.
Now, here's Braden Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego? And a happy Friday to everybody out there in America's finest city. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Broadcasting every single day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Now, we talked about this before. I mean, at this point in time, Prolific in the YouTube chat says, just play the show from 2 days ago. We could do this for like the last couple of years, just the way this team has been playing. But the difference is now the Padres in their first 61 games of the season have gotten off to the worst offensive start in history. In their history. It's honestly amazing. You know, Kevin Acee laid that out in his newsletter, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I just for context, I want to go through some of this. Of just like, I mean, we're talking about some very, very bad Padre teams that still started off better than this current Padres team offensively. Worst team in Padres history was 1969. It was the first year of the Padres' existence. First year of the Padres' existence was 1969. So when they had Chris Cannizzaro, they had Nate Colbert, Jose Arcia, Tommy Dean, Ed Spezio, Al Ferreira, Cito Gaston, Ollie Brown. That was your San Diego Padres. 1969. That team that year in 1969 won 52 games and lost 110. They finished dead last and had the worst winning percentage in Padres history at a .299 winning percentage. That offense started off the season in their first 61 games, hitting .222 with a .330 slug and a .623 OPS. They hit 40 home runs and had 195 walks to a 457 strikeouts, 68 doubles, 15 triples, 449 hits in their first 61 games. And guess what? Most of those numbers better than the Padres' first 61 games this season. You go back to 1973. The 1973 Padres, who were 60-102 and finished 6th place in the National League West, had Fred Kendall, Nate Colbert, Rich Morales, Darryl Thomas, Dave Roberts, Leon Lee, Johnny Grubb, Cito Gaston. That was your 1973 Padres with a record of 60-102 by manager Don Zimmer. That San Diego Padres team started the season hitting .242 with a .331 slug and a .637 OPS. They struck out 371 times in their first 61 games. They only hit 28 home runs, had 72 doubles, 12 triples, 486 hits. Still better than the Padres in 2026. Now, some of those stat categories are different, but still better average. Still better on base percentage. Slightly worse on the OPS. It's because the Padres in 2026 have hit 63 home runs. 1974 Padres didn't get much better the next year. 1974 Padres also went 60-102. John McNamara was their manager. Fred Kendall, Willie McCovey, Darryl Thomas, Enzo Hernandez, Dave Roberts, Dave Winfield, Johnny Grubb, Bobby Tolan. Your usual 8 players that would start for the Padres. That team jumped out of the season, out of the gate in their first 61 games with a 642 OPS. They hit 235, 335 strikeouts, 211 walks. At least they found a way to get on base a little bit more. 5 triples, 89 doubles, 486 hits. All of those stat categories minus the home runs are better than the current Padres in their first 61 games of the year. 1981 Padres, they weren't very good either. 1981 Padres went 41-69. 1981 Padres. Terry Kennedy, Broderick Perkins, Juan Bonilla, Ozzie Smith, Luis Salazar, Gene Richards, Rupert Jones. That was your 1981 Padres. They started off the season in 258 with a 663 OPS. 313 strikeouts, 166 walks, only 21 long balls. The 5th worst team in Padres history is the 1993 San Diego Padres. Had decent players on that name. Kevin Higgins, Fred McGriff, Jeff Gardner, Ricky Gutierrez, Gary Sheffield, Phil Plantier, Derek Bell, Tony Gwynn, Arky Sinfrocco, Phil Clark, Brad Osmus for 49 games. That team in 1993 won 61 games. It went 61-101. Their first 61 games of the season had 363 strikeouts. They hit 257 with a 317 on base and a 390 slug. That is 707 OPS. They had 57 home runs, 91 doubles, 532 hits. All of those numbers, with the exception of home runs, are better than your current Padres in 2026 in their first 61 games. In 2026, in their first 61 games, the San Diego Padres have hit 216 with a 291 on base percentage and a 360 slug. That is the worst average out of any of the groups that I mentioned in the bottom 5. Now, this is not the worst 5 starts to the season. This is the worst 5 seasons total and what those teams did in their first 61 games. We already know from Kevin Acee in his newsletter today that this is the worst start to a season the Padres have had offensively ever in their history. 216 average. A 216 average. I mean, the closest team to that was the 1969 Padres in their first 61 games. They hit 222. They still hit better than this current team. On base percentage wise, the Padres on base percentage in 2026 is worse than all 5 of the worst 5 teams in Padres history in their start to the season. The only thing the Padres are getting on those teams right now is their slug, and they do it on 4 out of the 5, 93 slugged better than the 2026 squad. OPS, same thing. Padres outdoing 3 of the 5 teams are the worst 5 teams in San Diego Padres history. You look at the hits, it's not even close. Padres currently this season have way less hits than all of the teams that were the worst 5 teams in Padres history in their first 61 games. The most glaring thing, though, and might be the biggest problem of this team, maybe on top of the fact that Manny Machado has not hit the ball well. And I know some of it might be this era of baseball, but man, you look at the strikeouts. I'm going to go down the list for you. In 1969, the first year of Padres baseball. In 1969, their first 61 games, that Padres team struck out 457 times. 73, the second worst team in Padres history. They struck out 371 times their first 61 games. 74, they struck out 335 times in their first 61 games. 1981, 313 strikeouts in their first 61 games. 1993, 363 strikeouts in their first 61 games. I mean, that is a look at, all those numbers are relatively the same. They're all around, 300 and something. I mean, obviously the 1969 team had a little bit more. But they're averaging about 367 strikeouts in their first 61 games. Does anybody want to know what the Padres strikeout numbers are in their first 61 games this season? Anybody want to take a guess? 523 strikeouts in their first 61 games. And you wonder why their batting average is so low. 523 strikeouts. I only went through the worst 5 teams in Padres history. They were averaging about 360 strikeouts in their first 61 games. The 5 worst teams in Padres history. This current team is striking out just way beyond that. 523 times. I mean, truly remarkable how this team has played in the first 61 games of the season. It's honestly remarkable how bad their offense has been. Because I don't know how you can assemble the team that the Padres put together and their career numbers and the track record of all these players and get the worst start in Padres history offensively. I don't know. It literally does not make any sense. I mean, you start talking about some of the rosters that I just ripped off. I mean, I'm not even including teams like 2003 who lost 98 games. I mean, 2003 was arguably one of the worst Padres teams in history. It was one of the top 10 worst Padre teams in history. I mean, they had Gary Bennett, Ryan Klesko, Mark Loretta, Ramon Vazquez played shortstop. I mean, Loretta and Klesko were good. Sean Burrows, Rondell Wright, Mark Kotze, Xavier Nady, Gary Matthews, Phil Nevin, Brian Buchanan, Miguel Ojeda, Keith Lockhart, Shane Victorino played a couple games of that team. Jason Bay was on that team. I mean, that was 2003. 2003. That team was awful. That team still outperformed this Padres team in the first 61 games of the season. I mean, you could even start thinking about teams that, didn't play that poorly, but we remember in recent history that weren't very good. I mean, go to 2018 where they came in dead last. Andy Green was the manager, 66 and 96 year. Austin Hedges, Eric Hosmer, Jose Perella, Freddie Galvis, Christian Villanueva, Hunter Renfroe, Manuel Margot, Franmil Reyes, Travis Jankowski, Will Myers, Corey Spangenberg, Carlos Asuaje, A.J. Ellis, Franchi Cordero, Rafael Lopez. I mean, that team out-hit this team in the first 61 games of the season. I mean, just the context is it kills you sometimes. You go through some of these rosters. I mean, I always think back to like 2013, at least in my lifetime, that was bad. They actually did, not that terrible in the grand scheme of things. They finished third place. 2013 Padres. That was a team that had Nick Hundley, Yonder Alonso, Jed Jerko, Everett Cabrera, Chase Headley, Carlos Quentin, Alexi Amarista, Will Venable, Jesus Guzman, Kyle Blanks, Logan Forsythe, 37-year-old Mark Kotze, Ronnie Cedeno, Yasmani Grandal, Tommy Medica, Rene Rivera, Pedro Siriaco, Cameron Maben, John Baker, Ray Fuentes, Jeff Decker, Chris Robinson, Cody Ransom. That team did better in their first 61 games offensively than the current 2026 Padres. It's honestly amazing and almost impossible how poorly this Padres offense has been. When you start thinking about all these teams that the Padres have had, and they have had some bad baseball teams. They have had some bad baseball teams. I mean, even in like recent history. You want to look at 2016? That team wasn't very good either. That was that first year where they traded for all these players, right? Derek Norris, Will Venable, Ryan Schimpf, Alexi Ramirez, Yanhervis Solarte, BJ Upton, Travis Jankowski, Matt Kemp. I mean, that team. Adam Rosales, Christian Bethencourt. I mean, that team got off to a better start than the current Padres. It's really insane how poorly the Padres have been offensively to start a season. I mean, I could keep going down the list. I really don't want to because it just gets more and more painful as you start listing some of these teams in these rosters. But honestly, Frank, I mean, at this point, you run out of like explanation of why this team is doing so poorly. And then you start to think, well, maybe it is the hitting coach. But even if that's the case, I don't know who you go get that's just going to magically make this thing disappear. I mean, it's honestly impressive how bad this Padres offense, with the talent that they have, to be the worst offense to start a season in Padres history. It's honestly amazing.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about when we said why we have the rule on this show is if you're going to fire someone, you have to give a name. You have to give a name, because if you just fire Steven Souza Jr. right now, who's going to take his place? One of his assistants, who's going to more or less follow the same path. So nothing's going to change. And again, it's one thing when your role players aren't hitting. That's almost expected. When your superstars are the ones that are not hitting, a coach is there to give them a little bit of advice and make tinkers here and there. They're not fixing. Albert Pujols is not going to come in middle of the season to be a hitting coach for a team that he was interviewing for the managerial job. That's not happening, as someone posted in the chat. You got to make this work right now. You have to try to find a way to make this work, because you're not benching these guys. You're not sending these guys down. You're certainly not DFAing them and eating the amount of money left on your contracts. That's the unfortunate situation this team finds itself in right now, is you're in a spot where you kind of just have to eat it at the moment and hope you can keep winning baseball games, which they have not been able to do right now. You're 4-11 in your last 15 games. That's not good.
And everything really stems from the offense. I mean, the pitching staff can't single-handedly carry this team. But I will say this, just for context, there's a lot of context that needs to be added. And what I mean by context, I don't mean excuses, because people just go, it's excuses. Well, I mean, I just feel like it's easy just to say like, oh, they got to be able to overcome a lot of this stuff. We're going to have context in a second. But despite how bad they've played, Frank, would you say they're 4 and what?
They're 4-11 in their last 15 games, which is basically since they swept Seattle. They played 15 games since they swept Seattle. They're 4-11.
4-11 in the last 15. They've lost 9 of 10. They are there are some other ones that are on there. Like if you date back to, and Kevin Acey had in his newsletter, date back to like April 28th. I mean, that's where the season really went down the tubes. Despite all of that, Frank, winning percentage wise, if the season ended today, which it doesn't, this would be the 13th best team in Padres history. That just tells you how poor some of the teams have been in Padres history. So I look at the way this offense is attempting to play. I wouldn't even call it like really playing right now. And I honestly find it amazing that this Padres team, with all the players assembled, have gotten off to the worst offensive start in Padres history. We'll talk about some of the context when we come back. We'll get some of your phone calls. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Craig Stammen was on the morning show earlier today. We'll get to that later on as well. But we're just getting started on a Friday on San Diego's Urban Sports Station 97 through the Fan. All right, well, the NFL was fun on a Monday here in the month of June. They got June started off properly with trades galore, plus got a quarterback that is leaving the NFL to join CBS. You got Illinois deciding when they're going to vote on a new Bears stadium in the fall, and lots going on in the National Football League, even though it is June 1st, and we're getting ready for the beginning part of the season, or really the off season, with a lot of just different training camps. But two big trades that happened on Monday of this week. The first one was the Cleveland Browns traded Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for Jared Verse and some draft picks. And I look at this initially as, obviously the big winner to me is the Los Angeles Rams in getting Myles Garrett. Jared Verse is one of the better players in the National Football League on his way up. So maybe they replace Myles Garrett with a younger, talented player in Jared Verse. They pick up some draft picks, the Browns do. But this is the Rams, and this is their MO. They trade for top talent around the NFL, and draft picks be damned.
Yeah, and this is so the official trade is Myles Garrett going to Los Angeles. Jared Verse is going back to Cleveland along with a first-round draft pick in 27, a second rounder in 28, and a third rounder in 29. So that's the haul that's going back to Cleveland in this trade. But yeah, this is the Rams' MO: get and keep, or try your best to keep big time professional proven talent, and draft picks are just that. They're potential, they're draft picks, they're prospects, as we say in baseball.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of keeping draft picks, because that's where you improve your depth of your team. But the Rams have proven that they can do it. I mean, this is, like we said, this is the norm for them. They did this in 2021 during the offseason when they acquired Matt Stafford in the season in which the Super Bowl was being played in LA before going on to win the Super Bowl. So they mentioned it before. I mean, when they won the Super Bowl, F them picks. We'll try to repeat the history. But even then, like, I thought when they made that trade for Stafford, it's like, all right, well, they're going all in right now. It works out for them if they win the Super Bowl. Not only did they win the Super Bowl, you thought they were going to be bad for like the years after that, and they weren't. In fact, people were throwing out the rumor that Sean McVay was going to hang it up and go work for TV and just be, just like, all right, I don't know why we'd want to coach this team. They sold everything away. But yet they've still made the playoffs almost year in and year out in Los Angeles since winning the Super Bowl, trading the draft picks, and they just did it again. And just to go through history, since 2016, here are the first-round draft picks for the Los Angeles Rams. Jared Goff, who eventually was traded in the Matthew Stafford deal. 2017, zero number one draft picks. 2018, none. 2019, none. 2020, none. 2021, none. 2022, none. 2023, none. 2024, Jared Verse, who eventually gets traded in the Myles Garrett deal. 2025, none. 2026, Ty Simpson. I would assume that Ty Simpson might be getting traded in a couple of years, maybe for, I don't know, Joe Burrow, maybe some big-time player. I mean, this is very on par for the Rams. Not surprised by it. I think it could work out for both teams. I mean, I think the Browns' track record makes me a little skeptical about this move, but I love the deal for the Rams. And as for the Browns, I think it remains to be seen. But it's not like they're not getting a good player back in Jared Verse. He's one of the better players in the National Football League, and only been in the league for a couple of years. The other trade that happened. Now, we got wind of this over the weekend that it was only a matter of time before A.J. Brown got dealt to the New England Patriots, because it was rumored that he was going to be traded to the Patriots within 24 hours. And then all of a sudden it finally went through, later in the day on Monday. But you know what? You get A.J. Brown out of Philadelphia, who's had his issues in Philly. He's still one of the better receivers in the National Football League. He's older now, so I don't know how much explosive production he's going to have. But, the Patriots get another weapon for Drake May. I like the move for both sides. It might work out maybe more for the Eagles at the end of the day, but the Patriots get a receiver that's a dynamic player that can help Drake May out.
Yeah, and again, this trade, Eagles agree to the trade. A.J. Brown to the Patriots for a first-round pick in 28 and a fifth-round pick in 27. So it took a first-round pick to get him, and this is honestly the first time that I can remember since Randy Moss that the Patriots have really had a true number one wide receiver, a guy that they can go to, a guy that you can trust to make the big play when needed. I know Julian Edelman was there for a long time. He was really good. I wouldn't put him on the same on the same level.
Broadcasting live at the Bill Hill Studios, we know how. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show, setting us on Sports Station 97.3, The Fan. Talk about the Padres' brutal skid that they have been on. The Padres' brutal skid includes 5 straight losses, 9 of their last 10 being L's, and a miserable 1-9 stretch in the last 10 games. obviously. They dropped a 6-4 game to the Phillies yesterday. Manny Machado called it rock bottom and said there's only one way up. But the article from Kevin Acee today said that there's, can it not get any worse? It's reminiscent of 2021 and 2023. They're only non-playoff seasons since 2020. Team batting average is .216. It's the worst in Major League Baseball this season and worst in Padres history through 61 games. We just gave you all those numbers. OPS 651, last in Major League Baseball, lowest through 61 games since 2014. Padres are the only Major League Baseball team without a single player at 200-plus plate appearances with an OPS plus of 100-plus, which is a league average hitter. Most teams have multiple. The Padres have 0. They are the only team that has 0. Bright spots in limited action. Obviously, Gavin Sheets has a 126 OPS plus, but he doesn't have at least 200 at-bats. Ty France has a 138 OPS plus. He doesn't have 200 at-bats. Miguel Andujar, just over an average player, 101 OPS plus. He doesn't have 200 at-bats. But the big money core guys expected to carry this team are mostly below average. Road trip disaster. Here's what they did on the road trip. They hit just 187 of the final 5 losses of the weekend into the week. Manny Machado specifically is the biggest issue. He's hitting 174 the 619 OPS since April 28th when the season turned from 19-9 to 13-20. He has a 514 OPS, which is 165th out of 169 qualifiers. A 127 batting average, which is dead last in baseball. Machado himself acknowledged that they got to bleeping hit. This obviously has to improve for any type of sustained success. Tatis and Merrill probably need to slug more and deliver closer to expectations as part of the big three, since they have not carried the team like they have in the past. And the recent Phillies series, Schwarber and Harper heavily outperformed him. It goes against, I think there was a lot of interesting comments from Craig Stammen yesterday, and he mentioned the sense that the offense carries the momentum, and when you don't have offense, you have no momentum. It's hard to build off that, and the energy's flat and everything like that. And he goes, it's not like in other sports where you can run a pick and roll and get your best player open. It's not like you can keep feeding the rock to your best running back to try to take things over. Can't rely on one guy. I thought, in Kevin Acee's daily newsletter, I thought the context that he put was a little off base. I see what Craig Stammen is saying. You can't call on the same guy to just go out there and only perform. I mean, baseball is a little bit different. There's going to be big spots where it's not the guy that's the hottest that's going to be able to do it. There's just too much failure involved. But I also get the sense from Kevin Acee on, most teams in Major League Baseball, this is in Kevin Acee's newsletter, that most teams right now in Major League Baseball are relying on about 2 guys on their team to carry the team. And that's when he brought up the comparison of this week against the Phillies. It was Schwarber and Harper that really did most of the damage for the Phillies compared to anybody else. They completely outplayed the top 3 for the Padres and Machado, Merrill, and Tatis. I mean, offense creates momentum. It creates energy. I agree with that. Lack of it makes everyone feel like they have to be a hero individually. That's what Craig Stammen said yesterday, which baseball doesn't allow like other sports. The counterpoint that Kevin Acee makes is teams are often carried by 1 to 3 stars. As I mentioned before, Padres were built to be carried by their core. Small ball and productivity, sack bunts, advancing runners, productive outs has been lacking. Getting runners to second with no outs and doing nothing with them. They've tried running more, but hits with runners in scoring position have been the biggest issue for this team. And I will say this too, a lot of the at-bats from these players, this is why, this offense isn't really working at all. They don't have any type of situational hitting in terms of throughout the game. Sure, they've had clutch hitting in the past, but the situational hitting has not been very good. I mean, once they get a guy on base, they should be able to try to get him over and get him in. I know that's not fun. It doesn't play with a big inning and all that other stuff with analytics in this day and age of baseball. But right now, you could probably use some of that. And I think that's what is the most frustrating for a lot of fans is, the Phillies have been struggling on offense for most of the year. And what did the Phillies do this week? Aside from a couple of home runs, they manufactured runs on their own. They found ways and different ways to score runs, and that's what good offenses do. And when the Padres were playing better baseball, they at least were manufacturing some runs. Now they're not even doing that. I mean, say what you want about bunting. Nobody likes bunting, but at this point in time, it might be a great opportunity to drop down a bunt. It may be a great opportunity to hit the ball the other way to advance runners. It may be a good opportunity to try to scratch across some runs, because right now they're at a premium. There's a lot of that going on, Frank, when it comes to the Padres. I mean, obviously the most glaring part is the fact that Manny Machado is off to his worst start ever. The offense is off to their worst start ever in their history of an organization, and they're really not doing anything nor finding opportunities to create runs.
No, it's not great. It's a complete and total offensive lapse that we have seen here. We're seeing the home runs, but the home runs are meaningless, especially when there's nobody on base. You got two-run homers yesterday, which made the game feel a lot closer than it actually was. And on nights where you are getting 6, 7, potentially 8 hits, they're all coming one in an inning. So those don't help you unless you're getting 6, 7, or 8 home runs over the course of a single inning, or over the course of a game. So it doesn't. This is just a complete and total offensive lapse, and not one person is to blame, because it's everyone that has been a problem this year. You're seeing some guys starting to kick out, and some guys do deserve a lot more of the blame than others. But this is just, it is an ineptitude out of an offense that I have never seen before, especially with one that is as talented as this one is.
Are you telling me? I would love to know, because everybody goes like, we got to get rid of all these players and go get somebody else.
No one's. I mean,
but let's before we even get to that point, Frank, because I think that's nonsensical. Do you think? And I listed off a handful of rosters that the Padres have had in history that have had better offensive production in their first 61 games than this team. Do we honestly think this is the worst offensive roster the Padres have ever assembled in their history?
Player-wise, God, no.
Player-wise.
It's probably the best.
Does anybody actually think that? Does anybody actually think that? I would love to hear an argument about how this talent that they brought in is the worst talent the Padres have ever brought in for an offense. I would love to hear somebody argue that, because based on what people's nonsensical solutions are to this, you would think that they literally, I mean, you couldn't try to come up with an offense this bad if you wanted to.
I know Ill in the chat's kidding. Bring Bud Black back. He's there.
He's
not the manager, but he's there. He talks to these guys every single day. Like I said, I know you're joking, but like he's there.
I look at this and like the thing with the I mean, everybody is just nonsensical right now, because the Padres are not playing well, and it's not very good. And I don't think it's just this entire team's going to just completely go to crap. And I also don't think it's Craig Stammen, and I also don't think really it's Steven Souza Jr. But it comes to a point where when you have this team as assembled, and they are collectively hitting the worst in Padres history, I mean, somebody does have to eventually be a sacrificial lamb. And the other thing, though, is if you decide to do that, because everybody goes, we can't just keep doing the same thing, we have to make a move. I think nonsensical people and people that fail make pivots way too fast. But if you were going to go down that path, like, who are you going to go get right now that's going to make things better? And are you going to tell me that, like, maybe the assistant hitting coach or, like, some of the other people on the staff are going to be better than what you currently have? I mean, do you think that is going to light a spark enough for people like, oh, man, I got my coach. This is not college kids. So as much as it, like, seems justifiable, I don't necessarily know if the solution really changes anything, aside from the fact that the Padres offensively have historically bad start, and the Stars need to perform better. I mean, I know this is going to seem like an excuse, but I do. There is some context that we want to get to when we come back that I think is important. But if you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll add some context to maybe why this offense has been struggling. Braden Surprenant Show, Standing Room Sports Station 97 through the Fan. College sports might be heading toward its biggest turning point yet. A new bipartisan bill in Congress is trying to give the NCAA more power again, allowing it to enforce transfer limits, spending caps, and NIL regulations. Why? Well, because leaders across college athletics think the current system is spiraling out of control. At the same time, SEC leaders like Kirby Smart are openly talking about the possibility of the SEC creating its own rules or even breaking away entirely. And honestly, that idea doesn't sound impossible anymore. The SEC and Big Ten already dominate financially, and the playoff expansion fights are creating even more tension between conferences. Can college sports stay united under the NCAA, or are we moving toward a future where the biggest conferences completely split off and run the sport themselves? A bipartisan group of U.S. senators has introduced one of the most significant college sports reform bills we have seen in years. The proposed legislation, called the Protect College Sports Act, was crafted by Senators Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell and aims to restore some authority back to the NCAA after years of legal challenges and NIL chaos. The bill would give the NCAA limited antitrust protection, allowing it to enforce several rules that courts have weakened in recent years. And those proposed rules include limiting athletes to one penalty-free transfer, capping eligibility at 5 years, preventing former professional athletes from competing in college sports, and restricting schools from hiring coaches away from another program during that team season. The legislation would also provide legal backing for the new College Sports Commission to enforce spending caps tied to athlete revenue sharing. Frank, as I go through a lot of these things that are in this bill, I hope it passes because these are the rules that the NCAA has lacked for the last decade plus when it comes to balancing and evening the playing field. There's so many rules in college athletics, especially football, that just don't make any sense. And unless they get some limited antitrust protection, none of these rules ever hold up in the court of law, which gives the NCAA the biggest problem that they have had in this new era of NIL.
Yeah, the new era of NIL has ushered in effectively a runaway freight train as far as college athletics, more specifically football, is concerned. At the heart of this bill is an attempt to slow down what many leaders believe has become an unsustainable spending race in college athletics. Even though schools agreed to revenue sharing caps through the House settlement framework, many programs have reportedly found ways around those limits outside NIL collectives and business partnerships. Some estimates now place elite football roster spending at nearly $40 million annually. Supporters of the bill argue the current system is widening the gap between wealthy programs and everyone else. Boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? The concern is especially strong among conferences outside the Big Ten and the SEC, which continue to dominate financially because of their massive television contracts, where Maria Cantwell described the bill as an effort to stop college sports from becoming, quote, a runaway arms race.
I just look at this in the sense, I mean, what college football, specifically college football, this is all about college football, to be honest with you. I mean, I know it's college athletics in general, and there's probably a couple of things mixed in, but the biggest problem right now is college football with a couple other sports that have been, close to college football in the last couple of years. They're doing this because of that. But it's the same as Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the rich keep getting richer and unlimited spending and unlimited transfers, which means unlimited free agency. I mean, there's so much of that involved in these leagues right now, and money and greed is leading the way. It's leading to a worse product, not only in Major League Baseball, but here in college athletics. And there need to be rules in place in order to make this thing competitive and ultimately make more money for the entities at B. And I think being united on this is a lot better than going your separate ways. And in doing so and trying to limit the spending and prevent some of the schools from outspending everybody, what you have to do, just like Major League Baseball is thinking about doing, is what the NFL collectively did a handful of years ago. And that was, we're going to pool our TV contracts together and we're going to benefit. We're going to have everybody benefit from this. And it's ultimately going to make a more competitive environment. And that's exactly what's going to go on in college athletics. One of the most interesting pieces of this legislation involves conference television rights. The proposal would allow conferences to negotiate media deals collectively as one large group if enough schools agree to participate. The idea is to reduce the financial gap between conferences by sharing television revenue more evenly across college football. However, there is skepticism about whether the SEC or Big Ten would ever agree to give up the financial advantage they currently hold. In Major League Baseball, they've convinced the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees to do that. Obviously, these power conferences, I don't know if it's going to be as easy of convincing. But the bill also attempts to stop future college conference realignment, expansion. We got a guy in the YouTube chat that has figured out why the Padres are so bad. You ready for this, Frank?
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Go for it.
The Padres are bad.
Oh no.
This is why the Padres are bad, right? Okay. This is why. Let me know if you think this is sensical or at any type of logic.
I got you.
The Padres are bad because where he comes from, he actively criticizes the team, and therefore that team and organization is good. But since I am a born and raised multi-general San Diegan who is, quote, passive towards the team is not good. And that's why the Padres are not good, Frank. That's it. And you know what it is? It's just because the radio hosts in town and the media aren't on these guys. If they're on these guys, they'd feel bad about it and they'd play harder. Are you kidding me?
Frank the Tank
Come on.
is on the Mets about as much as anyone else is, and he is a media personality. He works for Barstool. What are the Mets doing right now? They're 8 games under 500.
Are they out hitting the Padres though?
Scored 7 runs in Seattle yesterday after losing the first 2 or 2 nights
Is it their
ago.
average in OPS higher than the Pods?
It is.
Hey, you know what? Maybe they're onto something. Get a little slight kick in the ass.
Would you rather be 7 games under? Would you rather be 8 games under 500 or 3 games over?
But Frank, they're going to be like 25 games under 500 by the end of June. That's what they're going. They're never going to win again. Also incorrect. Also, like to and I get where he's going with, but here's the deal. It's like, you know, Albert Pujols interviewed for the manager's job. He interviewed for several hours, and people think like, well, let's just bring him in to be the hitting coach now.
Yeah, Braden. Let me ask you a question, Braden.
I don't know if it works like that.
You get an interview across the street for a show
Or somewhere else.
to host a show.
Okay.
You get denied. You don't get the job.
Or I apply for a job and to do a radio show somewhere else, and I don't get it.
Yeah. And said radio station calls you back 3 months later saying, hey, listen, I know you didn't get the show that you wanted, but the producer for the show you wanted really isn't cutting it. Would you mind coming in and being the producer? What's your response to that?
Absolutely not.
There you go.
Absolutely not. Hey, man, you put stuff in the chat, we're going to comment on it. I mean, come on, dude. It's just eventually, these guys have to be able to play on their own.
Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
I'm just saying, like, eventually they got to do this on their own. I mean, you could say what you want. I just firing the hitting coach would just be a move to make a move. It's just, you don't have to make a move. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes the best moves are no moves at all. I mean, you got to let this thing play out. What you can't do is make a panic move. But that being said, they're not showing any signs of this offense getting better. And so I don't know how to fix that. And I don't know what kind of message it sends. I mean, at this point, if you were to make a change with your offensive hitting coach, first of all, you need somebody that's going to come in and be better immediately, which I don't know if you have. And number two, to me, it would only be to appease fans to make it look like you're trying. Like, I guess, trying in their eyes, even though we all know that they're trying.
Oh, no, we're giving letter grades to the Padres on MLB Network right now.
For the season so far, I mean,
gave none.
They are above 500.
He gave no grade, which that's helpful.
I saw a B- on one of them, so that must have been what it was. We'll talk about that in a little bit later on like some of the May grades. I think they're going to be able to move this along. I think they're going to be able to come out of it. I don't honestly believe that this is the worst offense you could potentially. This is the worst offense in Padres history. I don't believe that to be the case. I really don't. Like the way they assembled it. I mean, because everybody's blaming AJ Preller for this and that and the other, and it's like, well, they traded James Wood, and I was like, you can't. It's not one for one. Like, you're not in a world right now. And here's the other thing too. I always love hearing this too, because Abrams and Wood are having great years for Washington. I think that trade in particular has worked out for both sides, because the Padres got Juan Soto, and then on top of that, they got good starting pitching, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a world right now, Frank, and people always want to take all of the best from all the trades, thinking that that's going to be their roster. If you were to take Abrams and Wood back and you undo that trade, who's your pitching staff right now? I mean, seriously, who's your pitching staff? I mean, your top two guys in the rotation right now would not be on the team. Who would your pitching staff be? Like, you don't know what your pitching staff would be.
We just got a comment in the chat.
Here we go.
About the Phillies and their managerial change. And we've gone over this last week, but we'll do it again because you may not have listened on that day. A manager losing 10 games in a row, Rob Thompson, as he did, is that worthy of getting fired? Absolutely it is.
He should have been fired in the offseason.
Yeah,
For context, he should have been fired in the offseason, but they decided to stick with him.
Yes, and Rob Thompson had been there for a while, so like they knew that there was a buildup of stuff that he should have gotten fired for. When they snapped out of it, when they went on, so during that 10-game losing streak, they lost to Arizona. Not great. They lost to the Cubs. Oh, sorry.
They went
Arizona was before that. They went Cubs, Braves, Cubs, Braves.
When the Cubs had won 10 straight.
Yes, the second time they did that. Those are two very, very good teams. After that, they fired him.
Then they fired Rob Thompson.
They won a game. Then they lost again to the Braves. Played the Giants, who are pathetic. Played the Marlins, who are pathetic. Played Los Clemente, who first place team, granted, but they're 500, not great. Then they played Colorado, who are pathetic. Boston, who's pathetic. Pittsburgh, who's not good. Played Cincinnati, who's actually decent. They lost that series. Played Cleveland, who's decent. Lost that series. The Padres, we've been discussing their offensive issues. The Dodgers lost that series, and then the Padres again. And now they got the White Sox.
And if they haven't played the Padres, they would have been, who knows where they'd be right now. They'd probably be around the same, they would be still under 500.
So again, the Phillies and Rob Thompson, did Rob Thompson deserve to get fired? Yes. Should he have started the season with the team? Debatable. But that is also the epitome of the, it's not who you play, it's when you play them argument.
By the way, Zach Wheeler came back too. That's also a massive upgrade.
So did the Phillies get good with Don Mattingly as their manager? Did it shake them up, or did they just run into a bunch of bad, pathetic teams?
Right. I think you could say the same thing like everybody talks about. Like Arizona, I am shocked Arizona is only a half game above the Padres right now with the way that they have played. Remember we had the whole thing like we had the one Arizona Diamondbacks fan that's in our YouTube chat every day, which I didn't realize he was an Arizona Diamondbacks fan, but it makes a lot more sense now.
Is it Wilbur?
It's not Wilbur. He's from San Diego.
Wilbur.
He's a Padres fan. No, the one Arizona Diamondbacks fan in our YouTube chat, and I was like wondering why the guy was always on the Diamondbacks. I'm like, this is so weird. And then he found out he's a fan. It makes a lot more sense. But like they had won the 10. They had a huge winning streak. They played the Rockies, the Giants, and the Giants, and they had like climbed up. Right, they caught the Padres, and I said, well, you know what? Let me know what happens when they start playing good teams. They got swept by the Mariners over the weekend. They did split with the Dodgers in a 4-game series. I mean, that's good, but that was including a 7-0 loss on Wednesday. They were able to outlast the Dodgers yesterday. But then, like, the fact that the Diamondbacks are only a half game in front of the Padres after how bad the Padres have played is also interesting. I mean, we're talking about a Cubs team that also lost 10 straight games. I mean, that was a team that looked like a no doubt playoff team, right? I mean, they've been going through a lot of problems too. So I think the context is key. Kevin Acee lays out in his newsletter today about some of the context, and one of the context things is like the Padres have faced some of the best pitching in all of Major League Baseball. You can kind of like add that to the group, but at the same time, Fernando, when asked about that, was like, we got to find a way to hit these guys, which is true. I mean, because these are the arms you're going to face. I mean, you played the Phillies twice. You got their best 3 both times. The exception of one. I think one time they didn't get the best guy. It was like when they were here, but they got Wheeler this time around. I mean, when Aaron Nola is the worst guy you're going to face, that's a difficult task. I mean, they played the Tigers beginning of the season when they had Skubal and they had Framber Valdez. I mean, you go through the list of the pitchers that they have faced this year, I'd be like hard pressed to find a team that has faced better starting pitching, but they still got to hit better. So I think there's some context in there as well, but this is a team that's like, it's not even like but it would be different though, Frank, if they're teeing off on the pitchers that weren't very good. They're not even doing that. But as everybody like has their own solutions to these problems, the solution really comes from the top 3 need to take care of business and they're not doing it. But is this rock bottom for the Padres? I think it's an interesting conversation because when I hear of rock bottom, I think of 2 things. One, I think of this from SpongeBob, but I also think of the infamous from that year that actually involves the team that's coming in this weekend that Frank knows a lot about. Who's their play-by-play guy again? Is it Rose?
Howie Rose is on the radio.
Who's their
for
TV
the most
guy?
Part, Gary Cohen.
Gary Cohen, in the season that the Mets
24
made the NLCS, which, yes, was in 2024, at the beginning part of the season, when they were so bad and the stadium was empty, it was still super early, but he said, this is rock bottom, which I couldn't believe he said on a TV broadcast, but the Mets broadcast slightly different. He was like, this is rock bottom. You thought that Mets team was just going to have a miserable season, and yet they made it to the NLCS. So I don't want to say this to like pretend to be positive in a dark time, but I do want to say it because I think the context matters. It is a long season. 2 things could be true. I mean, the Padres are playing absolutely awful, pathetic baseball right now, and it's not even enjoyable to watch for anybody. That part is true. I also think it is a long season, and things turn around for a lot of these teams very quickly. And so Kevin Acee alluded to that. We'll get to that context when we come back in the 11 o'clock hour, and we'll hear from Frank. I want to know what it was for that Mets team that year and why things got turned around. We'll talk about that in the 11 o'clock hour as we continue our coverage of Padres baseball here on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego Summer Sports Station 97 to the Fan. $11 o'clock on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Making some comparisons here for the Padres. And I look back at the, because this is how this thing works sometimes, right? So I look at the, the context, and I think context is you have to view baseball in context, because otherwise it gets too confusing for it just gets too ridiculous, I think. But the San Diego Padres are on a bad skid, and Kevin Acee alludes to, like, the skid started on April 28th, because before that they were 19-9, and since then they're 13-20, right? Well, every time I look at this team, I keep going back to the 2024 Mets, because the 2024 Mets used the term rock bottom. Now, they used it in the first weekend series. They lost the first 5 games, and then they had a little bit of a rain delay against the Tigers, and everything was terrible. And
no one was there.
Gary Cohen was like, this is rock bottom, which I think was a little bit too early. And little did he know that rock bottom was actually going to hit a little bit later.
A little bit further down
the road, until they ultimately went to the NLCS. So the largest skid that the Mets had, if we want to just do it in comparison with the Padres, and that Mets team won 89 games that year. It's not like they were, turned it around and won 90-something games. They won 89 games. And April 21st was like the beginning of the real rock bottom, because after that series against Detroit, after that last game that the Mets had, they started to rack off wins. They took 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati. They beat the Braves 2 out of 3. They beat the Royals 2 out of 3. They swept the Pirates, and they beat the Dodgers the first 2 games. And then after they lost to the Dodgers on April 21st, they went on a 33-game skid in which they had, not so great results. And I cut it off at 33 because they actually got swept by the Dodgers, and later on at home that season, on the second 2 games of this particular stretch. But just in comparison for the Padres in terms of 33 games, the Mets went through relatively the same April, May, beginning of June that the Padres have. Now, the difference is, though, the Padres are actually 3 games better than the Mets were. They were 13-20 over those 33 games. The Mets were 10-23, and the Mets would go on to lose 4 out of their next 6 games before they really locked in on June 3rd and had a great June. I will say this, though, as bad as that Mets team was, during that stretch, those 33 games I mentioned, they still hit 223, which seems like a lot better than what the Padres are doing. And that's because the Padres, even though their season number is 219, during these 33 games in which they've gone 13-20 since April 28th, the Padres are hitting 195 as a team with a 603 OPS. That Mets team hit 223 with a 653 OPS. Those numbers are nothing to write home about for the Mets either, but they are still significantly better than the Padres. The only thing that the Padres have more home runs than that Mets team, and more runs scored and more runs driven in, than the Mets do. Actually, not even. No, the Padres just have more home runs. That's it. They walked more times. Strikeouts continue to be the biggest problem for this Padres team. But as you look at the 2 teams, obviously they're somewhat comparable to that year. But the question I have, though, here is, for you as somebody that's watched the Mets, and of course they're coming in this weekend, as I look at this Padres team, compare them to the 2024 Mets, what was the turnaround for that Mets team that needed to happen? Because, it's not like, the Padres are historically just uncharacteristically bad offensively right now. This Mets team is very close to that. And I think the context of the pitching that they have faced and stuff makes sense. But that Mets team was able to turn it around and ultimately get to the NLCS. What was the turning point that you noticed as a Mets fan?
It was a fluke. So I shudder to even say it because this is something that YouTube chat is going to love. There was a closed door meeting, players only meeting, in which they basically tore each other apart. There was so much. There was conversations about Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil arguing about which species of rodent they saw running through the halls. They had a closed door meeting, then where they all yelled at each other. It was like the airing of grievances at Festivus.
It's a Festivus for the rest of us.
Exactly. And they all said, and after that, they were kind of like, "You good now? Can we kind of play baseball now? Is that something we're allowed to do?" After that, Mark Vientos went on a generational run as a hitting more home runs than in that second half of the year than I think he's hit since. Alonso turned it around.
Grimace showed up.
Yeah, Grimace showed up. That was a thing that Met fans clung onto and still do.
You know, with the Ray Kroc ties that this organization has, maybe they got to invite some McDonald's characters to the game tonight.
And Sushi Sam in the chat, yes, OMG with Iglesias. They still, come the trade deadline, they still didn't believe in themselves. This is who the Mets got at the trade deadline. Paul Blackburn, who was there and gone very, very quickly. Jesse Winker, who, granted, did have some high emotional moments after Met fans hated him. They hated seeing him go at the end of last year. Phil Maton,
former Padre,
who I don't think finished the season. Ryan Stanek, who was there the last 2 years, but he was a front end. He wasn't meant to be a bulk or a high leverage arm. Huascar Brazaban, who has become a high leverage arm for the Mets, but he was a prospect 2 years ago. And Tyler Zuber, who I'm still not even sure exists. So it's not like they went into the trade deadline believing in themselves. They just didn't sell off, and they got a couple of pieces here and there to be able to fill out the roster to make the run. And it carried them. Good for them. That was really all it was. It was a fluke. They had a closed door meeting. Grimace showed up, and all of a sudden they started playing to their potential.
I look at sometimes you need that spark. I honestly am surprised we haven't had a report about the players only meeting, like not having one yet. You know what I'm saying? Like I honestly can't believe that hasn't been the case yet. Those are very and I'm not advocating for that because those are very hit and miss. You have one chance at that.
Mm-hmm.
You have one chance at that.
Mark Vientos going on the run that he went on would be like Ty France hitting 3 home runs every week and a half, because that's what Vientos did that year. He just went off, and he had a big 3-run home run in the postseason at Dodger Stadium. The huge home run by Francisco Lindor against the Phillies in the playoffs. That it was just a fluke. Everyone finally got hot at the same time, and whether or not it had anything to do with the players only meeting, it was. You want to talk about divine sports gospel and VAR? That's especially after Grimace, after winning a couple of games, after OMG with Jose Iglesias. They rode the vibes above replacement wave through to the end of the season.
Somebody brought up in the YouTube chat about the Arizona Diamondbacks from 2023. They had a rough 53 game stretch in the middle of the season. You know what was significant about the 2023 Diamondbacks? They went to the World Series.
And Sam, they won 161. That was another game. They had a double header on the last day of the season. No, it rained out. I think it was the last 2 games got rained out. So they played a double header on that Monday. So they were the only games playing. that first game at the very end of it went back and forth, back and forth, back and
That game
forth.
went super long.
Yeah, Lindor hit a home run, and then Atlanta came right back, and then somebody else for the Mets hit a home run, and Atlanta come right back right at the very end, and they won that game. And then, of course, because they were already in the playoffs, it didn't matter. They gave away the second game of the doubleheader because, again, it didn't matter. But I mean, that was another huge moment that was a pure riding the wave game.
All right, I look at here. So somebody brought up the Diamondbacks, right? 2023. The Diamondbacks team went to the World Series in 2023. They snuck into that playoffs. I mean, they got in at the last second, and then they were able to get hot in the postseason. So they had, I pulled up a 32-game stretch for them, which is like this 32-game stretch for the Pods. Okay. I just subtracted one because whatever. So it's 32 games. They had their bad stretch, that 2023 team for the Diamondbacks. I think our resident Diamondbacks fans are back in the chat. That 2023 Diamondbacks team had a bad stretch from July 2nd to August 11th. I mean, you want to talk about sheer panic out of a fan base, like our fan base. Could you imagine if this was happening in July? And I'm not saying this to be like, oh, like, you know, it could be so much better because it's not late in the season. I mean, the Diamondbacks in 2023 who ended up going to the World Series from July. I'll just make it 33 games to make it context here. From July.
Just say that one extra game really ruins the whole conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it's okay. Let's go back to April 28th. Anyway, from July 2nd to August 11th for the Diamondbacks, those 33 games that they had, they went 8-25. They won 8 games. They also had their awful offensive stretch. It's still significantly better than the Padres' awful offensive stretch, but you know what? Context matters. During that stretch, they hit 226 with a 301 on base and a 372 slug. The Padres during this stretch since April 28th, a 195 average, a 270 on base, and a 333 slug, 603 OPS. It's honestly amazing that the Padres were still able to win the amount of games that they have been able to win during these 33 games that they have been on, where it's just been such an offensive struggle. But I think a lot of that shows the pitching staff. I mean, that Diamondbacks team went 8-25 in the middle of the season, Frank, and still went on to go to the World Series. I mean, they were awful in July. Eight wins from July 2nd to August 12th. They got 8 wins, and they still went to the World Series. And that's the context for us on the season is long.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's not excusing how bad they are now, because they are offensive to watch.
I mean, I don't think anybody thought this Diamondbacks team. I didn't think this Diamondbacks team in 2023 was going to sneak into the playoffs.
But I mean,
they played a lot of tough competition early in the year. The schedule opened up in the second half. They started not having to face the great pitchers that they had to face. The Padres are facing right now. And all of a sudden, they rip off a bunch of wins in the last couple of months. I know you can't rely on that and they have to play better, but I think it also provides the context of it is a long season. And you have time to make it up. And right now, the Padres still have a winning record and are still right there in wild card contention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this entire thing. I mean, the first hour, we talked about how poor the Padres have been. And I don't know if anybody really has solutions, because if people did have solutions, Frank,
they'd have changed by now.
They would have applied said solutions. There's only so much you could do with what you have. But I will say this. I mean, out of all these like comparisons, the Padres hitting the ball over the fence. I mean, there's your slug that you wanted, right? Just not getting any doubles or triples to go with it, and you're not really getting any hits anyway. I honestly think doing this exercise too just shows how historically bad the Padres have been offensively.
And remember that that Washington Nationals team that won the World Series in 2019, they were, I think, 13 games under 500 at one point. So, I mean, it's a long grind of a season, which is why we've said so many times, you cannot watch baseball like it's the NFL. You can't do it. Otherwise, you go insane.
It's true. It's true. And that's what we see on a daily basis. That's why yesterday it's like, oh, good thing we didn't have to deal with the context of the show.
We were so happy.
I mean, I will say this. I thought you were going to see another 3-2 loss yesterday. I thought it was going to be another 3-2 loss. Unfortunately, the bullpen gave way. 833-288-973, 833-288-973. Let's get out to Kevin in Chula Vista. Kevin, what's going on?
Hey, good morning. Happy Friday. Friar Friday, I guess it is, huh?
Yeah, it's a Friar Friday. Hey.
There you go. Solutions, none. Waiting is it. I keep reminding folks respectfully that, we signed up for this. We signed up for these long contracts. We signed up because we thought that what Peter Seiler said would be true, that this team would be the team of the 20s, the decade of the 20s. And, it has these guys have yet to live up to that. So you can't move the contracts. We're stuck with what we have. And all we can do is wait and hope, really, is what it boils down to, guys. And, it's nasty. No one wants to feel this way. We all feel horrible. I'm sure the players feel horrible. But I don't care so much about the back of the baseball card as I do looking at what we have seen to date. And from where I sit, I don't think what we originally thought we were going to get has happened. We've got too many of these guys that are now at an age of decline. That's now starting to be a factor. And the injury thing with your pitchers, with Joe and with Nick Pivetta, and go right through the list. So it's not a good combination. And unfortunately, they're on a treadmill with the front office that continually tries to make up for all of these shortcomings. And there's no guarantees with that. You can bring people in at the trade deadline, but how effective are they really going to be? We've seen very little in the way of immediate impact that comes at the trade deadline. Players just don't operate like that. So all we can do, guys, is sit back, wait, and see what happens. Every baseball season is different, and we'll see how this plays out. And at the end of the season, then we can make an evaluation. But right now, it's just a rotten time to go through, right?
It's a tough time in the stretch. And unfortunately for Padres fans, you could just chalk up end of April, all of May, and beginning of June as terrible stretches for the Padres, because that's been the case the last couple of years. I think it does make a difference when you go out and trade for players. I mean, 2021 Atlanta Braves, who won the World Series, what did they do at the trade deadline?
Got a whole new outfield.
They got a brand new outfield. They traded for 3 new starting outfielders. It went on to win the World Series. We can talk about the Braves, too, if you want. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. It's obviously tough times right now for the Padres, grinding through it here on a Friday. We'll hear from Craig Stammen later up on the show. He was on with the morning show. Hear what he had to say about the state of the team as we continue on the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's number sports station, 97 through the Fan. San Diego State football is officially entering a new era. The Aztecs will have 10 nationally televised games in their very first season in the Pac-12 with appearances on USA Network, the CW, CBS Sports Network, and even the Big Ten Network against UCLA on the road at the Rose Bowl. And for the first time since 2012, every regular season game will be played on a Saturday. This isn't just scheduling news. This is a statement about where San Diego State football stands nationally. Pac-12 clearly views San Diego State as one of the cornerstone programs of the new conference era. Now comes the real question. Can the Aztecs turn that spotlight into championships? Because the exposure just got a whole lot bigger. San Diego State football officially feels like it has entered a completely different chapter. The Pac-12 released its 2026 football television schedule this week, and the headline is massive for the Aztecs. 10 nationally televised regular season games in their first season as members of the new Pac-12 conference. And maybe just as important, for the first time since 2012, every single regular season game will be played on a Saturday, which I think is great news. It may sound small, but it's actually a major branding move for the program. No more random Friday night kickoffs, no more late week scheduling chaos. Schedule feels like a program that's now operating on a power conference stage to an extent, but love the way the national exposure is working out for the Aztecs. Also love the no Fridays as somebody that coaches high school football.
It's not, it is. P stands for power in the Power Act 12. That is, we've said that, we've pounded it home. And that is exactly what it is. It is a power conference. The schedule, though, is you're 100% right, though. The schedule does scream visibility. San Diego State will have 4 games on the USA Network, 3 games on the CW, 2 games on CBS Sports Network, and 1 one appearance on the Big Ten Network against UCLA. That is coast-to-coast exposure for a program trying to establish itself nationally, entering a brand new conference era. The Power Act 12 clearly sees San Diego State as one of the league's centerpiece brands moving forward. And honestly, conference needs San Diego State to succeed. And they're coming off a very, very good season to where it looks like they could do that out of the Mountain West.
Yeah, biggest games on the schedule, if you will. The season opens up September 5th at Snapdragon Stadium against Portland State on USA Network, but things ramp up immediately after that. Week 2 sends the Aztecs to the Rose Bowl against UCLA in a nationally televised matchup on the Big Ten Network. Obviously, that game feels a little symbolic. It's not just San Diego State versus UCLA. It's the Pac-12's new reality colliding with college football's new power structure. Then comes conference play. Aztecs open Pac-12 competition at home against Texas State on October 3rd before a huge home matchup against Fresno State and another one against Washington State later in the season on Halloween. And circle November 21st right now, Aztecs and Broncos of Boise State. That game has some serious potential to carry conference championship implications.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also you have that flex game as well, which you would have to assume will be on national television in some way, shape, or form. Coming up the weekend after that, it's your final game of the season. So most likely all 12 games being nationally televised. Now, what does this mean for San Diego State as a program? This isn't just about television windows. It's about perception. Nationally, programs become nationally relevant when recruits, media, and casual fans can consistently see them. That matters a lot. San Diego State is coming off a 9-4 season and its first bowl appearance since 2022. And now the Aztecs enter the Power Act 12 with some real momentum and real visibility. In the conference is also clearly betting on late season drama with this new flex game format, which will be right after that Boise State game where matchups can shift to maximize college playoff positioning. So it's a very, very good step for San Diego State for sure.
Yeah, and you understand where the Pac-12 is at. They want relevance immediately, right? And so San Diego State's going to benefit from that here on this schedule. They also, some of the other non-conferences matchups are good. They're going to go to Toledo early in the season. They get James Madison, who was in the college football playoff last year, coming to Snapdragon Stadium. A lot of home games for the Aztecs, all Saturday games, as mentioned before, and almost every single game on national television. So obviously, with the other side of this exposure, expectations. That obviously rises dramatically. It's one thing to quietly win games in the Mountain West. It's another thing entirely when you're playing nationally televised games almost every week under the new Pac-12 banner. And now the question becomes, can San Diego State handle the spotlight? Because the opportunities are absolutely there. Snapdragon Stadium will be featured nationally. The recruiting pipeline hopefully gets bigger. The exposure increases. The stakes increase. Now the performance has to match the stage. The other update for the Aztecs, though, in football, they just got a commit from Cathedral Catholic. Isaac Cook, wide receiver for 11:23. Broadcasting live for the Bill House Studios. We know how. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not big bank banking. It is better. Padres got a lot of problems on their hands, obviously, from the offensive standpoint. We didn't really talk about yesterday's game a whole lot, but I just, how about this? I know it's kind of grasping at straws now here, but I felt like the Padres needed to go after the win yesterday. And I understand he's like your closer. One of my buddies said this, who pitched in college. He was like, if the Padres really want to go after a win right now, after they took that, after they pulled within 1 run, was at the top of the 7th inning, right? Why didn't you just have Mason Miller go into the 1-run lead? Try to at least give you a chance in the last inning.
I think it's the
1-run deficit. Sorry, the 1-run deficit. I wouldn't mind that, but the reality is, it's like who gave it up yesterday? Adrian Morejon. Morejon has not been very great this year. I mean, he keeps going through ups and downs. I mean, I'm honestly curious if he's ends up being a Padre next year. I mean, we saw the like Dennis Lynn had this article. He had the one of his mailbags. He was kind of saying it was like unlikely for Adrian Morejon to be a Padre next year. It's like it didn't make a lot of sense for the Padres nor Adrian Morejon to re-sign here, which I found interesting. But he's 4-1 of the 4.75 ERA. He has gotten a lot better after a couple of bad outings. But as much as people want to and I think every bullpen arm is seen under a magnifying glass because you don't see him a lot. Yes, Morejon has not been as dominant as he's been in the past, but I just feel like you're going to get some of those years, especially after he was coming off like a career year, Frank. I mean, I think he's still one of those guys you have to rely on. And despite the bullpen kind of giving it up the last couple of days by guys that have been solid, like Jason Adam and like Adrian Morejon, I mean, you have to roll with those guys as many times as possible.
Yeah, that's the big back end of your bullpen going up to Mason Miller. I mean, those are the guys that you're going to rely on the most. And no, you can't expect them to go out there and have perfect outings every single time. And especially with how good Morejon was last year, that's something that's very, very hard to replicate. It's by far and away the best season of his career, and one that he's not really been able to duplicate before. So it'd be interesting to see as far as the offseason and what that leads to it. But you don't really have many other options because you're going to freak out if Morejon gives it up. I can only imagine what you're going to do if Yuki Matsui comes in that spot and gives it up.
Right, exactly. I mean, I just feel like this is getting desperate right now for a lot of fans when it comes to the Padres and when it comes to trying to find solutions to the problem because they don't want to see this thing spiral out of control. Shows the passion and everything like that, but it's just kind of hard to be able to piece it all together sometimes. And right now with the offense for the Padres, I mean, it comes down to the leaders. And here's the other thing too, like we talked about the Gavin Sheets conversation like yesterday, or not yesterday, but 2 days ago. I had a great article about Gavin Sheets and how he's kind of like leading the chart. Are those considered like player meetings? Not, I mean, they meet like almost every night, like together and talk about things as a team, which I love, but I'm surprised they're not getting any better results after doing that. And maybe they will, but I just, I like we haven't had a report about a closed door players meeting yet, which I think you get one of those and that's it. But at least they are collectively trying to fight their way through this. I just don't know how many times we could say stay patient, Padres fans.
I think there's a difference between everyone getting together to just kind of become that cohesive gel team unit than there is, just knocking everyone's heads together. I don't think that, it could be a thing where some guys are like talking to each other about, hey, what are you seeing potentially with what I'm doing and stuff like that. But I don't see, like, if you're going out, you're not going to be knocking your teammates' head around on a golf course about how their swing is. You're going to do that like in a closed door clubhouse business setting. I don't think that's necessarily what Gavin Sheets is going for with those type of gatherings and get-togethers.
Can you even have one of those, by the way, if your quote unquote like star leader top player is the worst offensive player on your team?
It depends.
Who's running that meeting?
It depends on who calls it and how willing the star is to take it. That's really it, I think. It's how much he's willing to put his hand up and say, yeah, I'm really screwing this up. This is bad, and a lot of it's on me. It depends on those two things. It depends on who calls it and how willing the problems are to take ownership over it.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, that's like kind of where I think that is. I mean, I don't know how you're able to do that. I mean, again, like at least Manny hit another home run, but he's been the worst out of the group, and I don't know how that necessarily changes in the near future. I really don't.
Like, I don't think Fernando could call it right now.
I don't think so either.
He's just starting to kick out after having a bad season,
I don't think,
start to the season.
The players that are playing well are guys that are like role guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. Miguel Andujar is not going to be calling a players only meeting.
Especially since he's starting to come back down to earth. It's not Ty France, maybe it is Gavin Sheets. But again, we're not advocating for this. You get one of these a year. After that, it's, you either got the spark out of it or you didn't. But, the only positive out of this, though, is despite the lack of play and despite how bad their offense has been and everything like that, they haven't fallen completely out of the conversation yet. They still magically have a winning record. We'll see how much longer that lasts. But as we mentioned before in this month, you got to try to find a way to play 500 baseball, because then you'll enter July the same spot you did last year. And I think this is also goes to the importance of what we talked about a month and a half ago when the Padres were racking up wins. We said, this is your built-in insurance for when you do go on a long stretch of bad baseball. I don't know if that counts as right, but too early, but it's pretty dang close, Frank.
I mean, sure.
It is pretty close.
I mean, sure, I guess. I don't, something's got to be done. If something has to be done within the clubhouse, within the players, something needs to be done. And if you look at the wild card standings right now, everyone's complaining, oh my God, we're out of a playoff spot now. If you win, and who is it? Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, and Arizona all lose today, you're in the number one wild card spot.
It's a pretty tight race.
You're in the number one wild card spot by a half a game. You're below the line by a half a game. If you win tonight, which I don't see any reason why you shouldn't, looking at who you're playing, if you win and all those teams lose, you go from being out by a half a game to being in first by a half a game. It's not dead in the water. It's not really panic time yet.
And somebody texted me that yesterday. Is it time to panic yet? I'm like, no, and it's because they've done this every year for the last couple of years. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. When we come back, we'll hear from Craig Stammen. He had a lot of different things to say on the morning show as part of our manager's report. We'll get to that when we come back on the other side on the Braden Surprenant Show, setting us over in Sports Station 97 through the Fan. Carolina Hurricanes are back in the final for the first time since 2006, and they're entering the series as favorites against the Vegas Golden Knights. With the biggest storyline, Mitch Marner. After leaving Toronto last offseason, Marner now leads the entire playoffs in scoring and is just 4 wins away from a Stanley Cup. The twist, last year he turned down a trade to Carolina. Now he has to beat the Hurricanes to win hockey's biggest prize. Meanwhile, Carolina coach Ron Brind'Amour is trying to become one of a few people in the NHL history to win a Stanley Cup with the same franchise as both a player and as a coach. And don't forget the goalie battle. Frederik Andersen versus Carter Hart could decide the entire series. Do the Hurricanes complete their 20-year journey back to the top, or do the Golden Knights add another championship to their growing legacy? After months of playoff hockey, we're finally down to 2 teams. Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights will battle for the Stanley Cup, and on paper, this matchup has everything. Carolina is making its first Stanley Cup appearance since winning it all in 2006, while Vegas is looking for its second championship in just 9 seasons of existence. Hurricanes enter the series as betting favorites, but if there's one thing we've learned about the Golden Knights, it's that counting them out is usually a mistake. Let's dive into the biggest storylines heading into the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, right now the first storyline is the Carolina Hurricanes have finally broken through. For years, the Hurricanes have been one of the NHL's most consistent regular season teams. They just could never get over the hump in the playoffs. That has changed this year. After multiple conference final disappointments, Carolina is finally back in the Stanley Cup final for the first time in 20 years. Their combination of elite defense, relentless forechecking, depth scoring and disciplined play has made them one of the most complete teams in the National Hockey League, and the sports books agree. The Hurricanes opened the series as the favorites to win the Stanley Cup, a reflection of how dominant they have been throughout this postseason. Now, for them, finish the job, yes or no?
Mitch Marner, Hollywood Scripts. If you're looking for the biggest individual storyline in the series, it's Mitch Marner. After spending 9 seasons in Toronto and never advancing past the second round, Marner left the Maple Leafs and joined Vegas last summer. Here's the twist. Last year, Toronto tried to trade Marner to Carolina, but he declined the move using his no-trade clause. Now, 1 year later, leading the playoffs in scoring, and he's going to have to beat the very team he refused to join in order to win the Stanley Cup. You couldn't write a better script. Marner has been sensational throughout the playoffs and is playing some of the best hockey of his career. If Vegas wins his first season away from Toronto, instantly becomes one of the league's biggest success stories. Well, I mean, he's playing in Toronto, and teams from Canada can't win the Stanley Cup, Frank. So it's not that surprising that he automatically gets to the Stanley Cup final.
The biggest surprise to me there is that he'd been in the league for 9 years. It feels like he's been in there for 5 at the most. Going from on the ice to behind the bench now, no individual is more connected to the Carolina Hurricanes franchise than Rod Brind'Amour. He captained Carolina to its only Stanley Cup championship in 2006 and now has a chance to coach them to another. Since becoming the head coach in 2018, Brind'Amour has transformed Carolina into one of the NHL's most respected organizations. The Hurricanes have reached the playoffs every single year under his leadership and are now finally back on the NHL's biggest stage. A championship would cement Brind'Amour as one of the most important figures in franchise history and one of the NHL's elite coaches.
How crazy has this season been? 2 months ago, John Tortorella was working in television.
Yeah.
Now he's coaching the Stanley Cup final. Vegas made a shocking coaching change late in the season, and Tortorella stepped in. Fast forward to today, and he's preparing for his first Stanley Cup appearance since 2004 when he won a championship with Tampa Bay. That's a 22-year gap between final appearances, the longest in NHL coaching history. Love him or hate him, Tortorella's return to the spotlight has become one of the most fascinating stories of this postseason. I mean, every way you look at this, Frank, all these storylines, absolute fascinating Stanley Cup final.
Again, it's been absolutely incredible. And going back onto the ice with Jordan Staal, he spent more than a decade serving as the heartbeat of the Hurricanes organization. Now he's one series away from making NHL history. He won the Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh back in 2009. If Carolina wins this year, the 17-year gap between championships would be the longest gap for championships for a player's career in NHL history. It's a fitting opportunity for a player who has been one of the league's most respected leaders potentially to go out on top and make some NHL history at that.
Let's talk about the goaltending battle. Championships are often won in net, and this year's final is no exception. Frederik Andersen has been outstanding for Carolina. His save percentage sits above .930, and he's been nearly unbeatable throughout the playoffs. On the other side, Carter Hart, who has quietly delivered elite performances for Vegas throughout the postseason. Neither goalie was the biggest headline entering the playoffs, but both have emerged as major reasons their teams are still playing. This matchup could very well determine who lifts the Stanley Cup. Should be a fun one in goal, but you also got experience versus hunger in this one.
Yep, absolutely. Vegas brings championship experience. Carolina brings unfinished business. The Golden Knights still have several members of the original Golden Misfits team that stunned the hockey world during the franchise's inaugural season. Players like William Karlsson, Riley Smith, Braden McNabb, Shea Theodore know exactly what it takes to navigate the pressure of the Stanley Cup Finals. Carolina, meanwhile, is fueled by years of playoff frustration and a belief that this is finally their moment to shine. Sometimes experience wins, sometimes hunger wins. And right now, as we mentioned before, betting odds say hunger has the better shot.
Player to watch, Taylor Hall, former first overall pick, is finally making his Stanley Cup final debut after more than 1,000 NHL games. Hall has been outstanding throughout the playoffs and currently leads Carolina in postseason scoring. This could be the defining moment of his NHL career. 11:39 on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. We're broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios. We know how. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. It's not Big Bank Banking. It's better. There's a couple of clips that we want to play from Craig Stammen before we get to the sports thread, and then we're going to talk about something more about like the approach of the Padres in the noon hour, based on some things that were said on the morning show today by Saris. We'll get to that in the noon hour. But Craig Stammen joins the boys in the morning once every couple of weeks as part of our Manager's Report. It is Manager's Report with Craig Stammen is brought to you by SDCCU. It's not Big Bank Banking. It's better. So the first question asked of Craig Stammen when it comes to the morning show today was on going through his first really bad stretch as a manager. How that's going for him.
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't love a good challenge and, something that tests your belief in what you've always believed in. So just got to stick to that, double down, keep our circles a little smaller and figure this out together. But we will. And it's going to be fun when we do.
Talked about obviously a big roster move that was this week. Nick Castellanos was DFA'd. What about what was the decision process like for that? And Nick Castellanos not being part of the Padres now.
Nick's a great person. He's got a fun personality and definitely was all in with the Padres. In his time here, and he's at just a different part in his career, like a lot of guys get to, where they've been an all-star caliber player there, since he was born, basically. He's always been one of the best. And then father time catches up with you a little bit and you're just not quite as good as you used to be. And baseball pushes you out a little bit into a different role where you're not an everyday player and you're a bench player. And for a lot of guys, that's a very difficult thing to do, to change roles on the fly and figure out how to be good at that. And I just think in his heart, he had other interests. He wasn't quite as happy with that, not being able to play every day. And he's got young kids at home and, kids that are playing ball. And I know he wants to be involved with them a little bit more. And maybe now's the time for that opportunity. But, we left in a good spot together. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out for Nick being able to stay with us the entire season.
It's a very nice thing to say from Craig Stammen about Nick Castellanos. So Castellanos no longer part of the Padres. They were ready to move on. Obviously it's a tough, and I also think it's tough. I mean, for a lot of Padres fans trying to figure out why they made this move on the fact that, for the Padres, the guys that replaced them are not necessarily, who knows? I mean, Nick Castellanos probably could have done some of the things that Jace Bowen and Samad Taylor have done at the plate. I don't know if they could do that in terms of the outfield and base running and everything like that. But, I think the Padres wanted a spark. And we'll see how those guys do. And again, small sample size for both Bowen and Samad Taylor. We'll see how they do maybe over the weekend. He got ejected for the first time over the time frame since the last time he was on with Bennett Woods. Here's what they said. Here's what they asked. Here's what he said about his first career ejection.
Oh, I left a lot on the table.
You did.
That was, but it
we need to know.
A couple people were joking. Hey, that's the nicest ejection ever.
Yep.
I said, well, I try to be a nice guy sometimes, but the hardest part is I got a good relationship with a lot of these umpires. I don't want to ruin that one. And the other part, they're really nice back to me too. So it's hard to get mad at somebody that's nice to you. And I think he gave me a longer leash too. I was expecting him to eject me right away as soon as I walked out of the dugout after review. I was kind of like caught off guard a little bit. And then finally about halfway through the conversation, he was like, I'm supposed to eject you. And I said, yeah, so it's, one of those things I felt like, it was coming. You got to do it as a manager. You got to try to fire up your ball club, and you got to stand up for them when you think, they've been slighted a little bit. And, I felt that way about that. I still feel that way about that call. And, I wanted Xander to know that I got his back in that, and I'm going to fight for him.
Craig Stammen on with the morning show today as part of the Manager's Report. Play, one more thing, and then we're going to play another clip of Craig Stammen in the noon hour because we got to get to our sports thread. But, obviously this is a tense time right now with the Padres. It's a tough time for the Padres. Here's what Craig Stammen had to say about having these tense conversations with the team.
I think if you ask the players, they've seen it come out right. If you ask my kids, they've seen it for sure.
Oh yeah, mine too.
So, I got that dad voice in me, and we had a little talking to after the game in Washington, last game in Washington, and we got to be honest with each other about how we feel about how we're playing, and clearly it didn't work. Getting them fired up to play in Philly, but I thought we played a little bit better baseball in Philly. We just came out, we lost by a combined 4 runs, so against a good team, and we just got to keep playing that kind of baseball. The offense is going to come, and we'll be able to get this thing turned around.
Greg Stammen on with the morning show today as part of our manager's report, which is brought to you by SDCCU. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. Some interesting comments that he made about Manny Machado that then, Sarah's talked about on the morning show as well. We're going to get to that in the noon hour to start our noon hour. But before we do that, it's time to get to today's sports thread.
You know that group chat? The one that's always blowing up with the biggest sports takes, debates, and breaking news?
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me?
Yeah, we've got that too. Welcome to the Sports Thread, where we break down the top 5 stories in sports, just like you would with your crew.
Oh, no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
No filters, no silence, just real talk.
All right, Frank, what we got going on today?
Oh boy, it's another good football day on the
Number 1
on the old sports thread. The legal battle over Brendan Sorsby's eligibility took a major step forward on Monday as a Texas judge heard arguments on whether the quarterback should be allowed to play during the 2026 season while challenging the NCAA's permanent suspension for gambling violations. Judge Ken Curry did not issue an immediate ruling, instead requesting additional documentation before making a decision in the coming days. The timeline is significant because Sorsby's attorney are asking to seek a ruling by June 15th, giving them enough time to decide whether to continue pursuing college eligibility at Texas Tech or declare for the NFL supplemental draft before the June 22nd deadline. The case now sits at a critical crossroads with the judge's upcoming decision, likely determining the next chapter of Sorsby's football playing career. How likely do you think Sorsby plays this season based on the new tight deadline?
I think it's a 0% chance of playing. And if he does play, I think you have a massive problem in college athletics if he does, in fact, play. That's my take on it. So, they're trying to get this done fast. If they do not get it done fast, or they have to... so he can't play unless the judge rules on this, right?
Right.
Okay. Because the NCAA was like, yeah, fat chance you're playing. It's not like an appeal thing where you get to play while you wait for a decision. The fact that they're asking for it to be done quickly, usually...
means they're trying to sneak something through.
But honestly, usually when I, have had... in my experience with court decisions that involve sporting events that allow for eligibility to play, and I have dealt with this before, if it has to be done in a timely manner, they usually go denied, so they don't have to worry about it. So my guess would be this is getting denied. That would be my guess. If it does not get denied, there's a whole hell of a lot more problems for college athletics coming down the pipeline in the future if you're going to allow a kid to play who gambled on his games. I maybe games he didn't play in, but gambled on his team, made over $90,000 in bets. I mean, this is the simplest thing and simplest rule to abide by. Don't gamble on sports if you are an active athlete playing the sport. It seems pretty self-explanatory. Moving on.
Number 2.
Moving on. The Atlanta Falcons have locked up one of their franchise cornerstones, signing wide receiver Drake London to a 4-year, $141 million contract extension that could be worth as much as $150 million with incentives. The deal makes London the 3rd highest paid wide receiver in the NFL by average annual value and keeps him under contract through 2030. After producing nearly 4,000 receiving yards in his first 4 seasons, London has established himself as the centerpiece of Atlanta's passing attack, and the extension signals the Falcons' commitment to building around their young offensive core, with future deals for Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts potentially next on the agenda. Did the Falcons make the right move by paying Drake London now, or are NFL teams becoming too aggressive in handing out massive contracts to players that have not reached their elite tier at their position.
I think this is a mistake. I really do. I don't think giving money to receivers is important. Not as important as making sure your offensive line is set. Not as important as making sure your defense is set. Not as important as making sure you have a quarterback, that you believe in. So, to me, with the Atlanta Falcons, I think it's a waste of money, to be honest with you. I really don't think locking down receivers long term is a good idea. I think you're better off having young guys, or I think you can go find players that can make an impact for your offense more than receivers. And I think you don't need necessarily there's a lot of teams that don't need that. And I think the Falcons I think it's a waste of money. I really do.
Number 3.
Receivers are a dime a dozen. You can go find guys that can be productive for your offense.
The NHL is giving its All-Star Weekend an international makeover in 2027, announcing a new tournament-style format featuring teams from Canada, the U.S., Finland, Sweden, and a world squad made up of players from all other countries. The move comes after the overwhelming success of the Four Nations Face-Off and is designed to capitalize on fans' growing appetite for best-on-best international competition. One of the biggest storylines is that Russian players will be eligible to play for the world team despite ongoing certainties on the global stage, setting the stage for what could be a significant debate leading into both the All-Star event and the next World Cup of hockey. Has international competition become more appealing to hockey fans than the traditional All-Star game? And should leagues continue moving towards country-based tournaments instead of conference or division formats?
I think people are more excited about it from a fan perspective because the level of hockey is higher, because the guys are representing their country. And there's a lot of international players in the NHL, and I think they have a great pride in representing their country, something they don't get to do on a daily basis. And I think that's eventually what All-Star games need to look like if you're going to get that level of play. And the biggest thing, what makes an All-Star game fun? Guys, the best in the world all playing at their best. That's what makes All-Star games fun. That's why the Four Nations Face-Off was so popular, because these guys are playing their ass off. I don't know if they're doing that for the Pacific Division in a 3-on-3 tournament, but you know what? Doing it for Finland, it's a little bit of a different story. I think there are certain sports that can implement that for their All-Star game. I think baseball is one of those teams, or one of those leagues too. Fans in All-Star games want to see players play, the best players in the world play at the highest level.
I worry with it because what made the Four Nations tournament so popular? It was the first time that hockey fans had seen international hockey in about 10 years. So and that's also what made the players really delve into it too, because it's the first time they played international hockey in almost a decade. So I fear that it might dilute it a little bit, the law of diminishing returns, but it would be a lot better, yes, than just a standard All-Star game. All-Star games stink.
Number 4.
All-Star games stink because the players don't try hard.
Exactly.
That's why they stink.
Exactly. The New York Yankees are holding their breath after superstar Arson Fudge, who now I know will not be getting any phone calls for the next month and a half, was diagnosed with a bone bruise near his right shoulder and rib area that has been affecting his swing in recent weeks. Fudge was held out of Tuesday's lineup after an MRI revealed the injury, which helps explain his recent slump following another MVP caliber start to the season. While manager Aaron Boone expressed optimism that the issue is not a long-term concern, the Yankees are awaiting further medical evaluations, which they've gotten. They said, I believe it was a stress fracture in his rib.
Yeah,
which he's now going to be out. Yeah, he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks with that injury. If Arson Fudge misses significant time, how much does it change the Yankees' outlook for the rest of the season and their chance to make a deep playoff run in the postseason?
Well, that's going to hurt them significantly. He's one of those, as Kevin Acee mentioned today. I mean, most teams in Major League Baseball are carried by like 2 to 3 guys. He is one of those guys for the Yankees. And I'll say this, like I had some micro tears in like my muscle in my ribs. It was hard to breathe for like 3 weeks. Not a micro fracture in the actual rib. Like, I'm talking about the muscle around the ribs. That I was out for like 6. I had that nagging for 6 weeks. This is going to be rough.
You don't know how much you used muscles until one of them hurts.
That's right.
And then you find out very quick.
New lunchtime hour would come back. New lunchtime hour on the Fan. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. All right, so we got a lot to get to still. We got 2 hours left on this show. Padres and Mets. Yeah, this is not as fun as it was last year when we were going into the series. Last year was slightly better. Weren't the Mets better last year too? Are the Mets ever good in your eyes?
They were once.
One time.
There was that one time many years ago.
The Miracle Mets?
Sure.
We
can
the
go with
Mets. Meet the Mets. Don't you love that song? Don't you play that all the time?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The New York Metropolitans. I can't remember, like last year. I mean, you wore the Jose Reyes jersey on the first day?
DeGrom, actually.
Did you wear you had
Reyes was planned for the next day.
Yeah, you got shut down pretty quickly on
I
that.
did,
But you know
yes.
what? The Padres won the days that you showed up in Mets gear.
They won all of them, actually.
That's right. They did. They did win all of them. Frank's not wearing Mets stuff, so Padres fans, you're in trouble.
No, you're not.
When was
No,
that
you're
series
not.
last year? It was after I came back from the motherland. That would be July 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Sure.
The Mets, July 28th, 29th, and 30th, they came in that weekend sweeping the Angels and sweeping the Giants.
Uh-huh.
They were 62-45
Uh-huh.
and in first place in the National League East.
But they were.
See, like I'm telling you, that was a lot more fun because the Padres were a lot better at that point last year. The Mets were a lot better than last year. They weren't the two worst offenses in all of baseball.
And they also, since then, have gone on to be one of the worst teams in baseball.
Right.
Since then. Like Grimace in reverse.
The opposite of Grimace. What character would that be? Big Red?
Smile? I don't know.
You're getting Big Red right now? Like the West Kentucky mascot? No Big Red hate on this show.
No. What color on the color wheel is the exact opposite of purple?
I don't know, but you were getting tripped at for a second in the YouTube chat about the Yankee stuff.
Yeah.
But the first time you got chirped, the guy had it all like together. Like he didn't have spaces in between his words, so I was trying to figure out what he was saying.
Mhm.
And then he put spaces in the words, and I got to see what he said.
Yellow is the exact opposite. So find a yellow Big Bird, I guess. I don't know.
It's the mascot of the bad Mets is Big Bird.
It's actually oh God. The diametric opposite of purple is chartreuse. It's between
Oh yeah,
it's
chartreuse, of course.
It's between green and yellow.
That's like something where
So Kermit, I guess. I don't know.
Kermit the Frog.
Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, there you go. If the the Mets get swept, you got to talk like Kermit for a week. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't just kill our audience. All right, let's lock back in on some of the things that Craig Stammen said as part of the manager's report. We played some of those sound bites to end the 11 o'clock hour, but there was something significant that we did not play for you that we wanted to play for you now. And it's about Manny Machado. And in the context, you got to hear a little bit of what the approach was. And then some interesting comments from Eno Saris as we kind of piece this thing together from the morning show today. Let's start because Eno Saris was actually on after Craig Stammen was on. Let's start with Eno Saris talking about when asked about like what the hitting coach does in professional baseball.
Started with what?
But Eno Saris.
Yeah, Eno. So we're starting with Eno.
Stop
Okay.
talking like that.
Eno coming up.
I mean, you're dictating the action of the
You're
pitcher,
dictating the
right?
action. Yep.
So you can stand up there. I mean, like this is before pitch clock, but just generally you can stand up and be like, which pitch am I going to throw? And so they're like, you can, that's why some pitchers will just show me their grips, right? Because they're like, that's not going to help the hitter.
Right.
Like I'm just, I get to make these decisions. If I'm going to manipulate the ball this way or do this, I get to decide And hitting is at its nature reactive. So no matter what you do, at some point it's an animal instinct, right? Like it's just see ball, hit ball.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite players growing up was Benito Santiago, and he hit a walk-off homer one time. They interviewed him and they asked him, "What'd you do?" And he goes, I see the ball, I hit it hard.
Is that the clip that we're looking at? It was talking about like the approach at the place.
I believe that was. Was it not?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I mean, it does pull the context of like how easy the how eventually it comes down to the see ball, hit ball at the end of the day. No, I think the clip was, I mean, Eno Saris was talking about how, like, as a professional hitting coach, or professional hitting coach in Major League Baseball, it's really like the certain pitches that you're looking for at the beginning part of the at bat, right? Like, this is what you want to see guys do in an at bat against pitching, right? And so it's like, hey, Zach Wheeler does this. We want to be sitting this and spitting on that. Well, it's interesting that that's what was kind of said from Eno Saris, because, Craig Stammen kind of alluded to that in this answer when talking about what's it like managing a former teammate of yours in Manny Machado, who is struggling at the moment.
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that I'll give Manny credit for in this stretch, that's probably been something he's never experienced in his entire life, is that he's kept an amazing attitude. He's been such a team player for us. He's been, vocal in the dugout, vocal in the team meetings. He's engaged every day. He's playing phenomenal defense. He's doing everything else, and he's actually hitting home runs. But we're just not getting the hits in between those home runs that we're accustomed to from Manny. But I know he's getting closer. He's on the right track. We faced some pretty tough pitching here the last couple of days. That doesn't help, but it's the big leagues, and you got to figure it out. I'm just going to trust Manny, trust who he is as a person, who he has been as a baseball player for a long time, and just know that this is just one of those seasons, at the beginning, and it's going to change because it is a long season, and we've got a lot of baseball left, over 100 games left, and it's going to be a good 100 games for him.
So for Manny Machado, I mean, obviously, like yesterday, and I think he said it like a little bit during his post game about how against Zach Wheeler, he was just sitting off speed and wasn't necessarily swinging at the fastball too much. So it's interesting. Like, that's the kind of approach of like the decisions to swing against when it comes to this is like what the scouting reports say, right? And the overall philosophy of how do we attack guys, that's collective from the organization. And that's where you get a lot of these, matchups or you see the approaches against certain players. And obviously, as mentioned before, it sounded like the Padres were not trying to, swing at the fastball per se, but kind of wait for the changeup or the off-speed pitches for Zach Wheeler. And then Zach Wheeler ended up throwing only fastballs to Manny Machado. He ended up hitting one of them out. But I think it's a collective of things. Like, I think if you piece those parts together, you could go with, look, the approach is always, we're going to try to do this against their pitcher. But at the same time, as the at-bat progresses, eventually, as Eno Saris says, it becomes reactive. And you have to react to a lot of these situations while you're in the at-bat. And, if you think that, let's use the Zach Wheeler kind of conversation as an example. If the Padres, and we're just going to keep it very, very basic here. If the Padres approach yesterday was, all right, based on what Zach Wheeler's thrown this year, we think we can exploit hitting when he pitches the off-speed pitch. And we talked about it with Bob Scanlon a couple of weeks ago of he became that pitcher of, the next step of the adjustments he had to make was not only did he have to know how to attack hitters, but he had to know as the at-bat was going what they were looking to do against him. I mean, there's some pitches that players just take automatically because that's not what they're looking for. They want to see that. They want to get tested. They want to hit a different pitch. So if we go through that process that, okay, here's the hitters meeting. This is what Zach Wheeler throws. He throws this pitch. He throws that pitch. We are going to try to avoid hitting this one, and we're going to hunt this pitch because we can exploit that. If that's the plan going into the game, but then all of a sudden, Zach Wheeler decides to not throw that pitch, or in your at-bat specifically, he's just testing you with the pitch that you were instructed to spit on, then it becomes a reactionary game, which is different, right, than what the approach is at the plate. So that's a lot of the times why you see guys maybe look like they're a little bit lost. So maybe the conversation is they are picking the wrong pitches to attack on certain players, or maybe they don't know necessarily what the other team is going to do against them. Maybe it's a little bit more of the preparation on that. But eventually, Frank, I mean, you can see how the approach is put in, and then all of a sudden you might not get maybe what you were looking for in that approach, and it becomes reactionary. And that's where maybe the Padres have a little bit of issues.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely seems like it could fit the bill as being able to make those adjustments on the fly, which, I mean, it shouldn't be something that they're not used to doing. I mean, they're professional ball players. They should be able to make these adjustments on the fly, or at least have had the ability over the course of their career to be able to do it. So it may not just be their inability to make that quick adjustment. It's maybe trying to work on things that they are working on while trying to make those adjustments. Maybe some guys want to focus more on off-speed pitches because they're trying to figure something out. They're trying to work on something, part of their swing, that may not work for a fastball or a high-speed pitch. So it could be a multitude of different things, but yeah, that's not a it's certainly a starting point for sure.
Well, I think it shows that you can get away from your approach pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it also shows, that there's other parts to this. And I also think it leads to a situation where sometimes you don't want to give these guys a lot of information because now they're thinking about that too much instead of just going up there and hitting. I mean, they could be getting too much information. I mean, we heard that from a couple of weeks ago when there were a lot of guys defending Steven Souza Jr. I mean, this is his first time being a hitting coach at this level, like a major league hitting coach. He has been in these departments. He has learned from the Dodgers and the Rays. I would not consider that to be bad things to have on your resume, Frank. Learning how to do analytics and learning how the process of hitting from the Dodgers and the Rays. Are you kidding me? Like, that seems like a pretty good deal, but sometimes it's how do we get this information into the players? And there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with that. So as I look at the way the offense has moved and played, I mean, they've all said, as they have defended Steven Souza Jr., and I'm not in the boat of you got to fire this guy because, who's going to replace him, and is that really going to change things? And now you got to bring in the guy midseason or go with the assistant hitting coach, or maybe somebody else is part of the organization. Who knows how that's going to work? But they all said that he gives them plethora of information. Maybe it is too much information. Maybe they got to simplify things.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it. It could just go back to, as Eno said, see ball, hit ball. I mean, that's kind of what that is hitting at its basic core. Its simplest deconstruction is see ball, hit ball. Maybe that's what these guys have to do.
Yeah, but again, we're not part of the hitters meetings.
Nope.
So until we get part of the hitters meetings and understand what they're talking about, we're not going to have any idea of how to fix it. And neither is anybody else that's out there on social media or watching at home. I mean, sure, there's some things you can tweak in terms of like viewing that at bat in a vacuum, but you don't know what the overall offensive philosophy is, or you don't know what's being said about what they're looking for per pitch. I mean, I think that's a big reason why, Frank, you see guys take pitches in the heart of the zone that you would go like, why didn't you swing at that one? Right?
Yes, you're not looking for it.
Because that's not the one you want to hit. Maybe they have departments. They have analysts that are in front offices that are viewing what other teams have, knowing what their team has and putting together reports of we do better against this pitch than we do against that pitch. We think our offense can do better against this pitch than that pitch. Yes, I know he's not doing very well with this pitch, but we're better against this pitch than that pitch. I mean, these are all conversations that go about in this organization and throughout every organization in baseball. And then they put the reports together and then they go, here's our game plan. And then it's about executing the game plan. I mean, that's a lot of factors in an everyday Major League Baseball situation. So, maybe you got to simplify things for the stars that know how to play and are talented enough to go through it, more so than inundating them with a lot of information, because that could be part of the equation too. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I mean, the offense for this team has been rough. It's tough to talk about. But, I don't think that rules them out of the trade deadline. I mean, if you look at the standings right now, the Padres are 32-29. They're a half game out of second. I mean, they have now lost. They've dropped to like 7 games behind the Dodgers in the standings, which is going to happen when the Dodgers go 7 of 10 and you go 1 of 10. That's going to happen, especially when you lose 5 straight games. In terms of the wild card, which is ultimately what your goal was at the beginning of the season, you're right there in the thick of things too, but you got to be able to take care of business against bad teams. I mean, the Padres are 1 game behind the top wild card spot. They're a half game out of a wild card position as of right now. The downside is you don't want to be in a situation where you're tied with Philadelphia for any reason because you got swept by them. But it is a long season. The offense will come around, I think, eventually, because I'm not convinced that this is the worst offense in Padres history. It's playing like it. In fact, the start to the season is the worst it's ever been in Padres history, but I don't necessarily think this is the worst assembled Padres team offensively in their history. I refuse to believe that. So when we come back, we're going to take a little bit look at what the Padres' approach could be at the trade deadline. I know a lot of people may or may not want to hear that based on the way the Padres have played in the last couple of weeks, but some interesting things from The Athletic about that when we come back.
It's Tony.
The 2026 NBA Finals are officially set. It's a classic matchup. Knicks and Spurs. San Antonio stunned the defending champion Thunder in 7 games behind Victor Wembanyama, who averaged over 27 points and nearly 11 rebounds in the Western Conference Finals. 22-year-old superstar now has the Spurs 4 wins away from another championship. Meanwhile, the Knicks have been unstoppable. New York swept both Philly and Cleveland and enters the finals riding an incredible 11-game winning streak. Jalen Brunson continues to lead the way, while Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby have turned the Knicks into one of the NBA's most complete teams. It's the first Knicks finals appearance since 1999 against the same Spurs. Could Brunson end a 53-year title drought for New York, or will Wembanyama capture his first championship and officially begin a new Spurs dynasty? Game 1 will tip off Wednesday night in San Antonio. We finally got the matchup. It's set. Knicks and Spurs. Thrilling conference finals round. 2026 NBA Finals are set as a finals rematch of 1999. Knicks are seeking their first title since 1973. Spurs seeking their 6th championship and first since 2014. Something's got to give.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll start with how we got to this point, which was Game 7 of the Western Conference Final. The Spurs beating the Thunder 111-103. The young Spurs completed one of the most impressive playoff runs in recent NBA history by knocking out the defending champion Thunder on the road. Victor Wembanyama erupted with emotion after the final buzzer, celebrating his first trip to the NBA Finals. I believe it's just his 2nd season. San Antonio became one of the youngest teams ever to reach the NBA Finals. The Spurs defeating Oklahoma City 8 times this year, including the playoffs and the regular season. And also Oklahoma City's bid for back-to-back championships coming to an end with Victor Wembanyama. Just absolutely incredible numbers throughout the series. 23.3 points per game, 10.9 rebounds, 19 total blocks, over 37.7 minutes per game. Western Conference Final MVP unanimously. Opened up the series with 41 points and 24 boards in Game 1. Became a clear centerpiece for San Antonio's championship aspirations, which we all kind of knew he was going to be when he got drafted.
Yeah, and the supporting cast stepped up. I mean, Stephon Castle, second year guard, continues breakout postseason, 19.2 points per game during the playoffs, 6.7 assists per game. Primary defender on Anthony Edwards and Shai Alexander. So, I mean, he's the guy that was covering SGA, which is a huge help for the Spurs. Dylan Harper, rookie, continued to shine. He had 24 points in game 1, 18 in game 6, several key rebounds and clutch baskets in game 7. De'Aaron Fox, despite battling a high ankle sprain, returned after missing games 1 and 2 and delivered a strong game 7 performance, added that veteran leadership throughout the series. And the biggest play of game 7, with Wembanyama in foul trouble late, backup center Luke Cornett delivered a crucial momentum swing, blocked an Isaiah Hartenstein transition layup, sparked a fast break, led directly to a Stephon Castle basket. Wembanyama called it the definition of a winning play. What this means for San Antonio: just 2 years ago, 22 wins, 18-game losing streak, full rebuild mode. Now, 62-win season. Wembanyama winning Defensive Player of the Year, Western Conference champions, and 4 wins away from an NBA Finals championship. The Spurs have accelerated their timeline dramatically and maybe at the beginning of a sustained championship window. But on the Eastern side, it's been the Knicks really taking it to everybody in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, the Knicks winning 4-0 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. New York absolutely steamrolling Cleveland, entering the NBA Finals on an 11-game winning streak. Game 1, historic comeback. Knicks beating the Cavs 115-104 in overtime. The defining moment of the series. Knicks trailed 93-71 with 7:52 remaining. Then they went on a 44-11 run the rest of the way, completed one of the largest fourth quarter playoff comebacks in NBA history, with Jalen Brunson leading the way at 38 points. Game 2, Knicks took control, 109-93 win. Josh Hart, a career playoff high for him at 26 points. Brunson, 19 points and 14 assists. Karl Anthony Towns, 18 points, 13 boards. The Knicks used a devastating 18-0 third quarter run to break the game open. Game 3, even more punishing, 121-118, controlled the game from start to finish. Brunson, 30 points. Mikal Bridges, 22. OG Anunoby with 21. 10 straight playoff victories. And here's how the New York Knicks were able to dominate. Jalen Brunson, team leader, clutch scorer, averaging nearly 27 points per game this postseason. Cat doing exactly what you wanted him to do after trading away Jalen.
Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, we know how. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant, the Braden Surprenant Show, Static Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. At a time where a lot of Padres fans probably didn't want to read this, Ken Rosenthal, everybody's favorite journalist here in San Diego, put out a article. I mean, you're starting to get the trade rumor articles, right? The central premise of the article from Ken Rosenthal the other day was simple. Despite major flaws that the Padres may or may not have, injuries and an underperforming offense, the Padres remain firmly in playoff position, which almost guarantees that A.J. Preller will once again be one of the most aggressive executives at the trade deadline. The article by Ken Rosenthal argues that the bigger story isn't whether Preller will make moves, because history says he will, but rather whether ownership circumstances and the team's performance over the next 2 months could push him toward another blockbuster summer. Padres deadline reality: A.J. Preller is going to be A.J. Preller. Now, I think this holds up from like the beginning part of the year. I mean, I think these last couple of weeks, everybody would disagree with this, but the Padres are winning despite their biggest stars underperforming. Now they're not really winning despite that, but it is the most surprising aspect of the Padres season, and it's where they sit in the standings relatively to how poor some of their biggest stars have played. I mean, even with how bad the Padres have played in their last 33 games, where they're 13-20, they're a game out of the top wild card spot. I mean, they're right there in the thick of this thing. You could say what you want about they're not playing well, yada, yada, yada. They're still better than most of the American League who has, and who has had teams with a losing record in a playoff spot. They still have that. With the A's at 30-32 in the final playoff spot, tied with the Rangers, who are also 30-32. And now the Baltimore Orioles, who you see next weekend, not this upcoming weekend, but the following, a half game back at 30-33. I mean, shoot, the Boston Red Sox are 3.5 games out of a wild card spot right now. So those are teams that everybody is waiting to see what they decide to do at the trade deadline. The Red Sox being 3.5 games out of a playoff spot in 26-35 is looking for a right-handed bat to look for in the trade deadline. They're even willing to take out a big contract in order to do that. So if you're going to be one of those people that says, they can't buy anything, we should be selling. It's like, any opportunity you have to make the playoffs as an organization, you should be ultimately trying to do that, regardless if you think you're going to make it all the way to the World Series or not. Baseball is a very weird sport where anything can happen when you get to the playoffs, but you got to get to the playoffs. Now, a lot of the key issues we've talked about already, Ken Rosenthal lays them out in the article. Fernando, Manny, and Merrill have all entered June with an OPS numbers below 700. Padres ranked near the bottom of MLB in runs scored per game. The offense has been one of the least productive in baseball, if not the least productive in baseball. And yet the Padres remain in contention near the top of the wild card. A half game out now. The reality creates optimism internally, but the front office can reasonably believe that the improvement is already in-house because Tatis has recently started to heat up. Machado's track record suggests a rebound is likely. I mean, definitely better than what he's doing right now. Jackson Merrill remains one of the baseball's most talented young hitters. He hit a home run yesterday. If even two of those three players return to expected production levels, the lineup could look dramatically different by August. Supporting cast has carried more than expected. Gavin Sheets, Miguel Andujar, Ty France. I mean, these are unexpected contributors that have helped keep the offense afloat, if you will, although albeit that's close to sinking. Those players were never supposed to be carrying this offense, yet they've been among the club's most productive hitters. It raises an important question that I know a lot of you out there are tired of listening to. How much better can this team become if the stars finally start to producing like stars? I think a lot of people don't even believe that will ever happen. Rotation appears to be the biggest deadline need for the Padres, according to Ken Rosenthal in this article. And while the offense gets the most of the attention, the article points towards starting pitching as the organization's largest concern. What could the Padres do about it? Well, we'll tell you about it when we come back. Plus, the new ownership that can change everything, as laid out by Ken Rosenthal in this article. We'll continue that conversation when we return. The Braden Surprenant Show, Setting Sermon Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Final high school update for you of the 2026 spring season, or the 2025-2026 calendar year. And we end it with high school baseball. We've had some fun games in the championships over the weekend. And we start with the open division, where Patrick Henry was able to knock off Eastlake after beating Cathedral Catholic twice in the semifinals. Eastlake got put to 2 games as well. They were able to overcome Point Loma to get to that point. But it's the 4-seed Patrick Henry the 5-seed Patrick Henry Patriots that get the job done over Eastlake. Still a really great performance out of Patrick Henry. But overall, what a fun season it was in high school baseball. Patrick Henry is the best team right now in San Diego.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great run of play as well, coming through as the number 5 seed, beating Rancho Bernardo, and then beating Cathedral in the second round, coming back through, beating Rancho Bernardo again, 8-0, and then going out and beating Cathedral Catholic once again, to get to play Eastlake in the championship final. So a very, very good run, and congratulations to Patrick Henry for winning the CIF Open Championship.
Madison wins Division I over Mount Carmel. In Division II, it was Helix over Christian over the weekend in Division 3. This was a fun bracket. La Jolla tried to make a run at the longest travel you would ever need in a high school baseball tournament, having to play at Vista, having to go to Blythe, having to go back to Blythe, having to go to Ramona. They forced a final game, winner take all against the Ramona Bulldogs. Just ran out of gas. Ramona made it to the championship to play Westview, and it was the Westview Wolverines that ended up winning Division 3. In Division 4, it was Francis Parker knocking off Foothills Christian. In Division 5, Coastal Academy won the championship over Canyon Hills. And in Division 5 AA, it was Borrego Springs getting the victory over Calvin Christian. So those are the winners for the CIF baseball championship. So you'll start seeing those show up on a banner at Petco Park soon, which I think is really cool.
Yes, that's
that
awesome.
The Padres do that. They hang all the helmets up from the baseball and softball schools here in town. But final baseball poll in the Union Tribune, Patrick Henry got all first place votes as the number 1 team. Eastlake, number 2, Cathedral, number 3, Point Loma 4, Madison 5, San Marcos 6, Granite Hills 7, Rancho Bernardo 8, Westview 9, Helix 10. I have a vote in this. I don't understand, and here's kind of like the question of like the high school sports, and I just don't get and how anybody would vote against. At the end of the year, the best teams like make the Open, and then it works its way down.
Mm-hmm.
So like the best 8 teams are in the Open, which means if you win Division 1, you're like the 9th best team at best. So when you fill out your bracket, your end of the year rankings, why would you ever rank a Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, whatever opponent over any of the 8 teams that made the Open? Yeah, I know you won Division 1, but you weren't good enough to be in the top 8, and all of a sudden you win D1, so therefore you're better than the teams that lost in the Open. I have never understood that logic. I see it every single year at the end of the season. To me, when I fill out the top 10, you already knew the top 8 teams. It's just how they just played all each other. You don't need to know how they would do head to head. They just did it. So I don't understand that. I've never understood that. I know it's like kind of taboo to mention the fact that if you don't win the Open, like it's all ranked, right? So if you win the Open, you're the best team in the county. If you win Division 1, you're not the 2nd best team in the county. You're the 9th best team in the county. And then if you win Division 2, it's down the list. Like, I don't want to take away from, the kids winning a championship against teams like in their division. I think that's cool. I think it gives an opportunity to win more championships for schools that, based on enrollment would never have a chance. But it's when they start talking about like, oh, we're the 3rd best team in the county because we're Division 3. No, that's not how this works.
No, it's not. I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe your Division 1 champion, depending upon how badly they beat everyone else through the tournament, possibly getting up to number 6, maybe at the max. But that's unfortunately it's wishful thinking for sure.
Right.
It's just not how it works.
That's like anybody that, because we got the San Diego State Passing League tournament coming up, and they usually have like multiple brackets, right? They have the Open, but they have the number 1 bracket, the number 2 brackets, like double limb. But if you win the losers bracket and it doesn't go to the other side, you don't come in 2nd. You come in like however many teams made it to the winning side, you're the next best team there. So you really place like maybe 17th at best. Like you're playing for 17th place. That's why I firmly believe, and we have to change the mindset for a lot of people. I firmly believe that you should hang a banner at your school for making the Open in your sport, because to me, that's winning a D1 championship, because you're better than whoever comes out of D1 anyway. And if you would have played ready for for me, a 3-day weekend. I'll be off on Monday. Scraby will be in for me on Monday. I'm participating in the Don's Alumni Golf Tournament, which is a tradition unlike any other. I'll be at Fairbanks Ranch. I have not played golf since last year's tournament at all.
And nothing can go wrong.
I mean, I'm not trying to win the thing, so like it doesn't really matter to me. I'm there to have a good time and see some old high school classmates, and I got, I have 2 foursomes in it, and only 2 of us actually are alumni. I mean, I have my buddies playing in it. We have high schools representative of Scripps Ranch, St. Augustine. I don't know how they let the Saints kid in. To be honest with you, I don't know how we're able to smuggle him in though. Just every time it's like, but you know what? He has nothing to say. He's got nothing to talk smack about. So, but anyway, a couple people from out of town. It's fun. It's a good time. I get to play with my family and stuff too. So I look forward to that. So Scraby will be filling in with Frank. They'll be having the show on Monday. I'll be back with you guys on Tuesday, and hopefully it's after a Padres sweep of the Mets and then a 4-game winning streak, huh? That would kind of change the vibe of the team a little bit, right?
Padres are going to go 500 on this homestand, if they are. If they're going to go 500 on this homestand. 2 or all 3 of your wins are coming this weekend.
Well, we did the whole exercise about like the schedule, right? Mm-hmm. And just to compare it to last year, I know a lot of people don't want to hear this now because they just got swept in Philly, which I thought they needed to get at least 1 in Philly. So now they're behind the 8 ball a little bit. But we went through the schedule, right, for this month. And I said, they had the same month. They had the month of June last year in the month of May this year. They went 13-15. And then they went, so last year in May, they were 500, went 13-15 in June. They got into July with, a couple of games above 500. This season, they went 13-15 in May. So if you go 500 in June, theoretically, you'll be entering July with the exact same record you entered July with last year. And that team won 90-something games. Now, that team did not hit as poor as the Padres are hitting. I will say that. But you can still stay on track if you're able to, go 500 in the month of June, which I think they can do. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. And I didn't really believe the Padres were going to win a game in Philadelphia. I thought it'd be nice to win a game in Philadelphia, but I didn't think they would. And in the grand scheme of things, yes, I understand you're not scoring a lot of runs. You lost by 1 run, and 2 runs. It's not like you were getting your ass handed to you. I mean, their offense isn't very good either. So now that you have gotten swept by the Phillies, you do have to make up the game somewhere else. But I thought the Padres would take 2 out of 3 from the Mets, 2 out of 3 from the Reds. I thought they'd lose 2 of the 3 series on the road on this next big road trip, Baltimore, St. Louis, and Texas. And then you would have, honestly thought they would lose 2 out of 3. I thought they'd go 500 on their home series against the Braves and the Dodgers, and I thought they would split with the Cubs. But now with the fact that they lost 3 to Philly, you're going to either have to sweep the Mets or the Reds, or take 2, or just do a lot better on that road trip against the Orioles, Cardinals, and Rangers. But these next handful of series, these aren't world beater series. I mean, we all know how poor the Mets are just because we have to listen to Frank be miserable on the show. The Reds have been struggling as of late. Baltimore's gotten better, but they're still below 500, and they have been a disappointment. The Cardinals are coming back down to earth. Texas is still below 500, and you were able to take 2 out of 3 from the A's, who had been leading that division. The team in that division that you beat up on is the Mariners, who leads that division. So I think there's opportunities for the Padres to get hot after kind of like the stretch that they have been on. But at the same time, it just made it a little bit more of a difficult task to go 500 in this month. It's not saying they can't do it, but it's possible. And again, it's just context. It's just context. 833-288-973, 833-288-973. All right, let's get to this situation with the trade deadline. I mean, the rotation has its own problems. I honestly don't think it's that big of a problem in comparison to what the other problems are, which is the offense for the Padres. But there's a lot of the rotation lacks a lot of certainty behind King, and that's what Ken Rosenthal alludes to in the article. And it's why he says pitching is the priority number 1. I mean, the offense can theoretically improve from within. And so in terms of allocating your resources, the rotation can't necessarily improve from within as much as the offense can. And the Padres likely need a legitimate starter if they want to compete with the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Mets, and the Cubs in October, which is what his argument was for this, piece that he put in this week. And, to me, we've gone through it a handful of times. I think right now, after DFAing Nick Castellanos and seeing that there's a little bit of a weak spot there, I think you can trade for a corner outfielder right now, Frank, or a second baseman. It'd be nice to have a second baseman that can hit, and then Fernando can play corner outfield. So there might be an opening now for one bat. But when you look about like what the most bang for your buck you're going to get, it might come down to pitching. And that's why I think the relief pitching has always been an option for the Padres in terms of the trade deadline. But the new ownership can change a lot of things, which is why, and we're going to get to that in a second, but that is why Ken Rosenthal mentioned the fact that starting pitching might be a target for the Padres at the trade deadline. I just keep hearing so many Tarek Skubal connections with the Padres. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire, but it keeps popping up and popping up and popping up. And I think a lot of people driving around are like, I don't really care if we have Tarek Skubal if we still only score one run.
No, exactly. And Go Aztecs in the chat just asked, why couldn't the starting pitching improve with Pivetta, Musgrove, or Brito from within? Pivetta, you don't know when he's coming back. Kind of the same thing with Joe Musgrove. And with Musgrove especially, you don't know what the quality that he's going to give you now after Tommy John surgery. And Johnny Brito is an unproven talent. You saw him for a couple of months after the trade. He got sent down before figuring out that he needed Tommy John surgery. So those aren't really guarantees. You have guarantees in the starting lineup that could come around, and if and when they do, are going to make a big impact. But yeah, starting rotation definitely would be the guys that I would be going after at the moment. I personally would not trade for Tarek Skubal. He's supposed to be making a rehab start on Sunday, I believe I saw on the tweet, but I wouldn't touch Skubal because there's no guarantee you're going to get him back.
Well, I don't even think, at this point, do you, as a Padres fan, based on listening to everybody complain for the last 2.5, 3 years about contracts,
no.
Do you want Tarek Skubal back at age 30 after going through some injury problems this season?
Negative.
I don't want him for a long period of time. People can call me crazy all they want, but do you want to bring him? Do you want to give him a long-term contract? How has that worked out for your other pitchers that you've given long-term contracts to? It hasn't really worked out, especially guys that are in their 30s, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't really want to see that. You would have to do like a rental, but to me, in order to get Tarek Skubal as a rental, you're going to have to give up a lot of capital. I'd rather invest that other places if I could.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I would be first of all, if the Padres traded for Tarek Skubal, I wouldn't be upset about it. When it happens, if and when it happens, if that happens at the deadline, okay, we're doing our deadline show in a couple of months. Who knows what the Padres' record is at that time? Maybe they've improved significantly, Frank. And the report is that the Padres have traded for Tarek Skubal. Are we going to be upset about that?
No,
we're not going to be upset about that. But the reality is you have to see what else you could get to. If they get Skubal and then they go get another bat and then they get a bullpen arm and magically create a player, it's almost like I feel like sometimes AJ Preller is playing MLB The Show, and it's well, I need guys to trade. Here, let me just create let me do a creative player and make this stud out of nowhere, and then trade him for another as a prospect for other players. Because every single year, they have nothing to trade, yet they go get these guys for names that you've never heard of before that end up not really doing anything. Some of them do, obviously. Guys like James Wood, which everybody knew was going to be a guy that was going to be one that you wish you had in the future, but it was willing to do that in order to win in 2022. Guys like CJ Abrams, obviously, I don't think a lot of people thought he was going to be a bust, even though he has gone through his own growing pains. But, to me, as long as you didn't trade Ethan Salas, I'm not super upset about it. I really am not. And for people last year, everybody's upset about the whole Stephen Kolek and Ryan Bergert thing. I mean, Bergert wasn't even supposed to make the team at the beginning of the year, and Kolek was a Rule 5 draft pick. I mean, yeah, I get that's controllable pitching, and you don't want to give that up, but I mean, sometimes you got to take some risks to try to improve your ball club. The Freddie Fermin thing hasn't really worked out. I understand that. But at the same time, and we're talking about a Rule 5 draft pick. You know, it's not like they gave up, which they have done in the past. It's not like they gave up your top pitching prospect. I get it's young. I get it's controllable pitching, but, you know, at the time of the decision, you needed some help at catcher, which you did not have. You had Martin Maldonado and Elias Diaz. Ethan Salas was out for the year. You had nothing at a Luis Campusano, who everybody wanted DFA'd. You had to do something, right? Because remember, like we're having this conversation right now, Frank, don't you have to do something? You have to do something. So AJ Preller went out and got Freddie Fermin, who was a young, controllable catcher, to see if he had what it takes to be a starting catcher, as he played most of his time behind Salvador Perez. At the time, seems like an interesting move. That's the cost of doing business. But I do find it funny, like all these things on all these trades that happen, everybody wants to go hindsight and everybody wants to go back in the past. Are you better off than the Royals right now?
Yes.
Yes. The answer is yes. I mean, what are the Royals doing? Royals are 25-38. Guess what? Ryan Bergert, well, he's injured, but Stephen Kolek might be available this trade deadline. I mean, what a disappointing team they are. You want to beat Kansas City? I mean, I know Washington took 2 out of 3 from you over the weekend. They're still finally trying to become relevant after that Juan Soto trade, which happened in 2022. It's 2026. And one of your key pieces in that trade is on the Rangers now. I mean, eventually you got to get to a point where it's like, are we better off than some of these other organizations? The answer is yes, even though you have these big contracts. But in terms of like the overall sense of this trade deadline, I mean, everybody's all afraid about losing prospects. Fine. I'll never be one of those people. That will be an agree to disagree. I mean, I think you got to make your major league team as best as possible all the time. And you're never going to know what's going to happen with future prospects. But one of the most interesting developments being discussed is the pending sale of the Padres, obviously. The club is being sold for approximately $3.9 billion for Jose Feliciano and Kwanzaa Jones, which is significant for baseball operations because it could be enormous. This is what Ken Rosenthal was reporting. Other teams reportedly believe an incoming ownership group could provide Preller with more payroll flexibility, more willingness to absorb salary, and more resources than he has recently possessed. And that possibility makes San Diego one of the most unpredictable teams approaching the deadline. And if ownership authorizes added spending, Preller would have more avenues available than simply trading prospects. He could take on expensive contracts. He could add veteran starters. He could add bullpen pieces. He could acquire players other contenders cannot financially absorb. Nobody's ever even listed, Frank, that maybe with that payroll flexibility, they could trade away contracts and eat money. So as much as people go like, you're being too positive, you must destroy this team at all means necessary. I mean, at the trade deadline, with unlimited funds that might be coming, that rival executives think are coming, I mean, who knows what this team might look like at the trade deadline? Who knows the kind of money that they might just be writing checks for to have players go away? What happened when Jose Feliciano took over Chelsea, Frank? What did they do with those big contracts?
Started getting rid of them.
They started getting rid of them. I mean, that's a possibility too. Maybe they can find some. I don't think they're going to do that, but at this point, you can't rule anything out with the new ownership that's willing to spend money and who has done it for other organizations. I mean, there's a lot of people on social media like want to start over. I mean, here you go. Do you really want to start over? I don't think anybody actually really wants to start over, to be honest with you. But they have the ability to do it. They could. I don't think, and the other thing, like Go Aztecs, the YouTube chat said, I don't think, does Preller regret O'Hearn since he is hitting .295 with 9 home runs? I mean, if he wasn't authorized to spend the money on O'Hearn, I don't know, can he regret that or not?
No,
you don't know what's
matter
part of the budget at that point. I don't think they let O'Hearn walk because they didn't think he was good. But now you have a new ownership group that could change everything and make this team a lot different come August 3rd. Based on what rival executives are saying, I think it's an interesting thing to watch. Now, before we go any further, we were talking about Johnny Brito, correct?
Yes.
Do you know the significance of Johnny Brito tomorrow?
No.
His rehab assignment is over.
Oh,
he
boy.
has to be activated from the 60-day IL tomorrow.
Oh,
now,
boy.
He can be activated and sent down to AAA.
He can be, yes.
But what's the problem with him coming off the 60-day injured list?
40-man roster
40-man roster spot. The 40-man roster is currently closed. So
I can't, like, I was looking at the 40-man roster the other day. My guess would be it's a pitcher, one of the pitchers that comes off. Maybe
is Matt Waldron getting added to the 60-day IL?
I have no idea. I mean, you also
like,
have Miguel, a guy like Miguel Mendez, who's like
they have Garrett Hawkins. They have
Garrett Hawkins, Ty Adcock.
Ty Adcock, I think, is on his rehab, minor league rehab assignment, if you will. You're going to have to make a roster move. Maybe they do add some. Maybe they part ways with a Will Wagner or a Mason McCoy.
At least one position player on the 40-man roster that's in the minors.
Right. I mean, well, you added 2. So, I mean, you added 2 guys.
Yeah.
So that's another possibility, but that needs to be made. I mean, the report from Mad Friars was Johnny Brito is almost certainly going to be optioned El Paso when he has to be activated from the 60-day IL tomorrow. Doesn't seem like there are any other candidates to go on the 60-day, and the 40-player roster is currently full. So there's a move to come probably tomorrow. So we'll see what they decide to do. I would agree with you. I think it's probably going to be a pitcher.
Where is he doing his rehab?
He did it all over the minor leagues.
Oh, great.
He did well in the
that's what I'm looking for. I want to see what he's doing.
He did really well. I think he finished his last outing was exceptional, and he was being used as a starter for, I think, most of that. This year in the minor leagues, if you will, let's go minors pitching. This year in the minor leagues, he has pitched for the Arizona Complex League, and he pitched for San Antonio. In 4 starts with San Antonio, he's 2-0 with a 1.96 ERA over 18 1/3 innings pitched. That's pretty good. Opponents' averages are 185 against Johnny Brito. His whip was 0.93, and he had 5 walks and 8 strikeouts. So obviously the strikeout to walk rate was a little different. In the Arizona Complex League, he had 9 strikeouts to 1 walk, but he had a pretty impressive rehab assignment in both the Arizona Complex League as well as the Texas League.
He didn't. He hasn't walked anyone in his last 2 games. He pitched 6 innings of 1 hit, no run ball, 4 strikeouts, no walks against Corpus Christi on the 29th. And then, last night, as a matter of fact, 5 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 strikeouts, no walks against Wichita. So he's pitched well, man.
Part of that Juan Soto trade yet again.
Yep.
I mean, he could be. I mean, you could have a situation where he's part of this rotation. You got 3 of your 5 guys part of your rotation as
part of the Soto trade.
Why did we ever trade for Juan Soto? We could have C.J. Abrams and James Wood. Who's pitching for you? I mean, seriously, that's always the conversation.
You know that guy.
Yeah,
there he is over there.
I mean, my guess would have been somebody like Marquez going a 60-day, but he's already on his rehab assignment.
Yeah, he's on his rehab assignment already.
So I'm curious to see what the roster move is going to be tomorrow for Johnny Brito. When we come back, 1 o'clock hour, we're going to start talking about the Padres and the Mets. We got some other things that we want to get to throughout Major League Baseball as well. as other sports. Final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego Urban Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. 1:00 on the Braden Surprenant Show on a Friday. Get ready for a weekend here. Padres and Mets. We'll have a preview of that series coming up at the end of the show. Frank, what do you think about the Mets? They stink. All right, moving on. That's exactly what that's going to be like, probably. Get the full breakdown. What do you think about this guy? He's terrible. All right. This is going nowhere, I see. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. Static Urban Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. We're broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios. We know how. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not big game banking. It's better. I just saw, I have to laugh at a lot of people's comments when when people watch games and they emotionally comment on games. I mean, I say some outlandish things too to my friends during games because your emotions taking over, not using logic. The best is these Facebook groups. So funny, dude. I mean, and the comments just kill me. There's a guy just wreaking havoc in a Facebook group that I'm a part of just so I can read the comments, Frank. And he was like, it's time to send Fermin elsewhere. I can't wait for Campusano to be back, right? He's like, I got to get rid of Freddie Fermin. And somebody comments, is like, weren't you the guy that wanted to cut Campusano last year? Now all of a sudden it's Campusano that's going to be the savior of our catching situation? I mean, the context is crazy. I mean, how many players, Frank, since you and I started doing the show over a year ago, how many players on this Padres roster have been cut by the fans?
Well, Xander, first of all.
Xander's gotten, yeah.
Wandy Peralta, Yuki Matsui, somewhat fair. Many, I think we'll just cut it at many.
I think almost half the roster has been cut. It's and it gets to a point where it's like, okay, I mean, if the guy is catastrophically bad, he's killing you the entire time, and it's not just a slump. I mean, we're talking about years of non-production because, I mean, guys are going to have bad years every once in a while. And when you sign guys to big-time contracts, you're going to get their best and you're going to get their worst. So in that particular context, I'm sorry, you're not going to get the best year out of these guys every single year. But I find it funny, Frank, when we just want the best 9 players playing in Major League Baseball right now on our team during the time that they are playing their best baseball. If it gets to that point, it's like, all right, guys, don't we all want that? It goes back to our saying, it's like, do not watch this sport like it's the NFL. It's just going to drive you mad. And baseball already drives people mad. I mean, it's just like when Ted Leitner was on with us last week on the roundtable. I mean, he ended up bringing it up, and I forget where he got it from, but he used to mention it on shows. He used to mention it during broadcasts all the time. This game will bring you to your knees. It's true. It's a game built on failure. And you're going to get a lot of failure. So I know people just want to hear me just rag on the Padres. I just don't know what that's eventually going to accomplish. I mean, there's only so much I can say. At this point, I feel like you did for the Mets at the beginning of the season where it's like, all right, what am I still crashing out about for? We know what the problem is. They got to fix it. They got to try to play better. I don't know what else to say.
Mm-hmm.
Be better.
Yeah, that's when you hit irrelevance.
Correct.
Is when it's just like, okay, whatever. You guys just suck. It's over. Done.
But here's the other thing too: is as we've mentioned and people have said, well, in Detroit and in Boston and New York, they hold these. No, they don't. They don't cuss and scream about the baseball team. You know what they do? They start talking about OTAs. They start talking about, the quarterback situation. They start talking about, classic off-season things. Here's a question for you that, because, my roommate, he likes the Dallas Cowboys. He's locked into our sister station, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas all the time. Talk Cowboy stuff off-season. He locked into the Padres too, but, he can step away from the Padres and go to the Cowboys every once in a while. And this is the time of year where you get the off-season questions, right? Like we do in the wintertime. But, he had this question. what's more impactful or memorable for an organization? A quarterback in the NFL that wins multiple Super Bowls or the one that snaps a drought?
So the one that snaps it.
I think that's an interesting topic of conversation.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? I mean, I agree with you. I honestly think it's more of a snapping of a drought, right? Like, does anybody, all you Charger fans out there,
This is what we'd be talking about instead of the Padres.
this is what everybody else would be talking about.
This would be our first hour.
It's baseball. Like all these other markets that have other teams, they're not just beating the hell out of the baseball team that's not playing well. They just move on to something else. They wouldn't be talking about this. I mean, if you're a Chargers fan, right? Does anybody remember Stan Humphries, aside from the fact that he brought the Chargers to the Super Bowl? They lost that one. Like, that's the only AFC championship they've ever won, right? It's the only AFC championship they ever won. Snapped a streak, right? Snapped a streak. You know, so like, the Dallas Cowboys podcast brought it up about Dak Prescott. Like, is it better for Dak Prescott? Is Dak Prescott going to be remembered more for snapping the long streak of Dallas Cowboys not winning Super Bowls compared to like Troy Aikman, who won multiple? I think that's a little bit different, just in the sense that like the Cowboys had won multiple Super Bowls in a row. I think it matters more so on the side of how long the streak is, and for teams that might have not won a Super Bowl. But, you know, if you look at like the Chargers, and is it like Justin Herbert winning a Super Bowl is like would be just,
Oh,
I mean, he could suck forever after that. It wouldn't matter.
The first one's always on a pedestal. That does not change. The first one is always on the pedestal. Everyone knows all of their names. It's always they're never buying another beer in the city again. I think the most impactful one after that would be, if there's no dynasty, it would be the next one that breaks a long drought.
To me, it's like the multiple thing. If you win more than two, it's the multiple over the drought. It's the multiple over the drought. But if you win two, the drought quarterback, I think it's more love and more fanfare. I mean, just look at some of the quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls. I mean, you know, who's more impactful for the Eagles organization, Nick Foles or Jalen Hurts? I bet you a lot of Eagles fans say Nick Foles. I mean, how long had it been since they won a championship, right?
Donovan McNabb.
Right? Did he ever win one?
No.
No, they never won one.
They went to one.
Right? Donovan McNabb is a better NFL quarterback than Nick Foles is, right?
Randall Cunningham.
They're ready to build a statue for Nick Foles in Philadelphia. I think Nick Foles is more of an impact than like a guy like Jalen. He snapped the streak. You know? I think he gets, like, Mahomes has won multiple, but he also snapped the streak. He gets the double whammy of the conversation when it comes to like what quarterback is more impactful. You know, Eli Manning's interesting because he snapped a streak, but also won two.
He also snapped the streak against an undefeated team that they gave no chance.
He also got the benefit of his defense being like legit.
Yes. And two unbelievable catches you'll never see again.
How about the Joe Flacco?
Yeah.
Everybody make fun of Joe Flacco being an elite quarterback. Ravens fans love him. He won a Super Bowl with the Ravens. Drew Brees in New Orleans, right? He snapped the streak, won the Super Bowl for the first time. Like, that quarterback is always going to be infamous more so than anything else.
I wouldn't put Tom Brady in that category before someone says that.
Well, Tom Brady he's
going to be infamous.
He was the first time that he won the Super Bowl, but they didn't win. It's not like somebody else came in and won other ones.
Right.
He ended up winning however many he won. You know, I think Tampa's a little bit different too. Like, when it comes to, you know, because they won one with Brady, and then they won one with who was their quarterback when they won here in San Diego. It's that they've won Super Bowls before, so that's a little bit different. But I thought that was an interesting time. To me, I think the quarterbacks that snap a drought are forever in lore more so than ones that, maybe even be better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know a lot of Eagles fans that think Nick Foles is like a god to them. It's amazing to me. And they think that more than Jalen Hurts. I mean, right now, Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, so they love him. But Jalen Hurts continues to like kind of play on a downward trajectory. If he might be a forgotten Super Bowl winning quarterback in Philly when it's all said and done. Yeah. Does anybody care about Jake Delhomme anywhere outside of Carolina making it to the Super Bowl? I mean, seriously.
I was rooting for Delhomme that year.
Weren't we all? Some of us came in a DeLorean and saw what this is about to become. The beginning of the dynasty, if you will. I mean, when you think of Charger quarterbacks, just to like relate it back to San Diego, Dan Fouts, Phillip Rivers are like the two that pop out. And Stan Humphries, why? Because he got him to the Super Bowl? Like Stan Humphries not anywhere near the level of quarterback that Phillip Rivers and Dan Fouts were. But he's in the lore. He got him to the Super Bowl for the first time.
Aaron in the chat. Oh, I just saw it. Where did it go? Aaron McHugh in the chat. I mean, we're doing an example here of this is the kind of stuff we would be talking about if the Padres were really as bad as everyone thinks they are.
He is so offended as a Philly Eagles fan right now. But I'm telling you, I know a lot of people that are from Philly. I know a lot of people that are Philly fans that say different than you, Aaron. So, I mean, I guess it's a difference of opinion.
Yeah, we are genuinely, you're right, we are spitballing here. Just because we're trying to show you guys what a world where if the Padres are really as bad as you guys thought they are, this is what we'd be doing. This is what we'd be talking about. This would take up the first hour of our show.
I look at you could say the same thing in baseball too, right? Because B. Wilson in the YouTube chat says it. He goes, the 2004 Red Sox would probably get more love than the 2018 Red Sox. I mean, that 2004 Red Sox team is the one that gets all the love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it snapped the streak. The Cubs didn't win multiple World Series after that. The 2016 team is definitely there. I mean, whenever the Padres win their first World Series, regardless of what level that team is, that team will be in way more lore than any other team that comes after them.
Well, you will always remember this. The first one will always be on a pedestal.
Correct. So, I find it to be a very interesting topic of conversation. I would kind of agree with the first one is going to be a lot better than the multiple Super Bowls. I mean, I guess you would look at, does that like change for like players in history? Like, I don't think anybody's ever going to not treat Tony Gwynn as Mr. Padre. Does that change?
No.
Does that change at all if somebody wins the World Series? I don't think it does.
No, not at all. I don't think. No,
he was there for 20. He was here for 20 years.
And to go off of what you said, the next one might not be as special as the first one. My uncle's a noted Cubs fan, has been his whole life. Of course, he wants the Cubs to win again, but he says, I am not nearly as invested because I saw one. I actually saw one. After 100 and some odd years of them not winning it, I was lucky enough to actually see one. I don't care anymore. I got one.
I mean, like, the other thing you could do is, let's just say they win a World Series with Craig Stammen as their manager. Does anybody can remember who the best managers in Padres baseball are? 10, 15, 20 years down the road, they're going to remember Craig Stammen as the, World Series winning manager.
Mm-hmm.
Go Aztecs brings some good points. Like David Freese being a Cardinal hero. For what? You got the big hit that they needed in the World Series. It wasn't any, like, people remember David Freese on the Cardinals. He had like an okay career in St. Louis. But you look at like some of the big stars that have happened in the World Series. I mean, I know nobody wants to hear this. Dave Roberts will never have to buy a beer in Boston ever.
Mm-hmm.
For stealing a base. Was he like the biggest contributor to that team? No, absolutely not. But he stole the base of the world. And was that did they do that against the Yankees?
Yeah, that was the ALCS against the Yankees in 04.
That started the whole thing.
It started the rally in Game 4.
Those are the players that do that. I mean, it's so funny, like the littlest things there of like the teams that have had so many great players that have had a lot of success, but it's like those things that have led to championships that lead to more lore than like some of your best stars.
And again, this is Padres truther. Is this rage bait? They're the bottom of the league. They're the bottom of the league in every offensive category. This is not rage bait. This is, you guys want to know what New York, Boston, Chicago does when their baseball team is bad? This is it. This is what they do. They don't freak out. There's no daily meltdowns. There's no Frank the Tank style collapses, crash outs. It's okay. Off to the next thing. Off to football. This is, as someone who worked in New York radio and listened to it his entire life, this is exactly what would happen. If the Mets and Yankees were both bad, we're looking at Giants. We're looking at Jets.
Nobody's looking at the Jets.
You got the Knicks in the post.
They're making fun of the Jets.
Exactly. You look at the Jets to laugh. You got the Knicks in the finals for the first time since 1999. That's what you're looking at. And I understand that's other sports, but again, we'd be looking at San Diego FC if the World Cup wasn't here. We'd be looking at San Diego State, getting you ready for San Diego State football. Big season this year coming up, Pac-12. You know, a couple months away.
That. We're in a kind of a unique market where since the we don't have the fallback with the NFL. That's why we get That's why we get the NFL.
Yeah, that's
level passion for the Padres, which is great.
Yeah, but that's we'd be previewing San Diego State. We'd be doing all these other things. That's what we would be doing instead of talking Padre baseball. We wouldn't be ripping them on a daily basis.
No, it gets old and it doesn't accomplish anything. I mean, growing up in San Diego, I don't remember them ever ripping the Padres to an extent just because they were just ready for the Chargers. It's just a hyper focus right now. I agree with Nate. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Competitive balance tax. Rob Manfred says it's a failed experiment. What does he mean by that? We'll get to it when we come back. This week in motorsports belonged to the veterans at Nashville. It was Denny Hamlin who overcame an early penalty after jumping the start, dove back through the field, and led a Joe Gibbs Racing sweep of the podium for his 62nd career NASCAR Cup Series victory. In the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, Justin Allgaier held off teenage sensation Brent Cruz in one of the best battles of the season, earning his fourth win of 2026 and continuing his championship defense. The Truck Series delivered late race drama, while Lane Riggs completed a stunning comeback and made a last lap pass to grab the Nashville Guitar Trophy and the series points lead. And in IndyCar, Alex Palou kept building his legacy. A four-time champion, won again in Detroit, his fourth victory in 8 races, extending his championship lead and putting himself on track for a record time 4 straight title. The big question, can someone stop Alex Palou before this season turns into one of the most dominant championship runs we've ever seen? This week was packed with drama across NASCAR and IndyCar, from a dominant night for Joe Gibbs Racing in Nashville to another masterclass from IndyCar champion leader Alex Palou in Detroit. We also saw emotional victories, hard racing, late race strategy gambles, and some major championship implications as the summer racing season starts heating up. We'll start in NASCAR, the Cup Series. Hamlin overcomes early penalty for Nashville victory.
Yeah, one of the biggest stories from Nashville Superspeedway was veteran driver Denny Hamlin turning adversity into victory. Hamlin started from the pole, but immediately put himself behind the 8 ball by jumping the start in one of the most egregious jump starts I have personally ever seen, serving a pass-through penalty. Instead of letting his mistake ruin his night, the Joe Gibbs veteran methodically worked his way back through the field and capitalized on a late restart to score his second win of the season and 62nd of his Hall of Fame career. Even more impressive was the fact that Joe Gibbs Racing swept the podium with Christopher Bell finishing second and Chase Briscoe finishing third. All three of them diving into turn one on the final lap, 3 wide. Pretty insane to see. The race itself was chaotic. Brake failures plagued multiple drivers throughout the evening, including A.J. Allmendinger, Ross Chastain, and rookie Connor Zilisch. Late race cautions repeatedly shuffled the field and created a frantic finish. One of the biggest flashpoints came when Brad Keselowski was spun into the wall after contact with Austin Dillon, leading to the RFK Racing camp, questioning whether or not the move was intentional based off of an earlier wreck involved. It's a checkered flag flew. Hamlin emerged on top, proving once again why he remains one of NASCAR's most dangerous veterans, and now finds himself one win off tying Kyle Busch's career high.
NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, Algier holds off a holds off a rising star. Saturday night's O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race delivered one of the best battles of the season. Defending series champion Justin Allgaier earned his 4th victory of 2026, but it wasn't easy. Veteran had to fend off 18-year-old rookie sensation Brent Cruz in a thrilling side-by-side duel during the closing laps. Cruz led a career-high 45 laps and looked poised to earn a breakthrough victory before Allgaier's experience finally prevailed. The win carried extra emotion. During his celebration, Allgaier paid tribute to late NASCAR champion Kyle Busch by recreating Busch's signature Nashville victory celebration. Meanwhile, Cruz continues to establish himself as one of the brightest young talents in stock car racing. Even in defeat, his performance may have been one of the most impressive stories of the weekend. Let's get to the Truck Series.
Yep, the Craftsman Truck Series produced perhaps the most emotional finish of the weekend, with Lane Riggs dominating the early stages and then had to claw his way back through the field after varying pit strategies shuffled the running order. On the final lap, Riggs used fresher tires and a crucial push from teammate Chandler Smith to pass defending Nashville winner Rajah Caruth and secure his 3rd win of the season. The victory also moved Riggs into the Craftsman Truck Series championship lead. Caruth's runner-up finish was emotional as well, as he was driving the truck originally intended for Kyle Busch to drive this weekend, and many fans were hoping to see that truck return to victory lane as a tribute to the late champion. Instead, Riggs delivered a dramatic comeback and one of the season's most memorable victories.
Let's get to IndyCar, where they continue the championship, where Pelot continues the championship domination. Over in Detroit, they finally started to stop racing in Indianapolis for the last 3 weeks. But over in Detroit, one storyline continues to define the 2026 IndyCar season, the dominance of Alex Pelot. First-time series champion, captured his 4th victory in just 8 races this season, surviving a caution-filled street race and several strategic challenges to win the Detroit Grand Prix. Pelot led 71 of 100 laps and once again demonstrated why he is considered the benchmark of the series. Kyle Kirkwood finished second and pushed Pelot hard throughout the closing stage. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. We got some labor negotiation things to talk about in just a second, and we're going to get to. But I do want to mention we have some SoCal baseball championships going on. Unfortunately, Eastlake lost to Corona a couple of days ago. Corona then lost to Huntington Beach, who has just bludgeoned teams in the Division I Southern California regionals for a state championship. They will await the winner of Cathedral and La Mirada. So how this works out, Cathedral, the 8 seed, if they beat La Mirada, they will play Huntington Beach tomorrow in the regional final for a state regional championship. They're not the only San Diego team still alive. Going down the list in Division 2, Point Loma dropped to Newport Harbor yesterday in the semis, so it'll be Bakersfield Christian and Newport Harbor in Division 2. In Division 3, high school baseball in the SoCal Baseball Championships, Helix unfortunately lost to Kaiser 7-5. Kaiser will await the winner of Westview and Glendora. A win for Westview will put them into the SoCal Regional Final in Division 3. So good luck to Westview and Cathedral tonight. On to Division 4. In Division 4, Francis Parker plays South El Monte tonight. If they win, they will play North tomorrow on for the regional final for SoCal for Division 4. So Francis Parker still alive, 2 games away from a SoCal State Championship. And then in Division 5, congratulations to Coastal Academy. They beat Sure yesterday, 5-2. Verdugo Hills and Roosevelt got into a benches clearing brawl during their game, and so both teams have to forfeit. So Coastal Academy wins the Division V SoCal Baseball Championships. So we have one state champion here in San Diego High School baseball. So they're able to win this SoCal championship, which is great. So Coastal Academy gets a victory. Francis Parker is still playing. Cathedral Catholic still playing, and Westview still playing. We'll see how that plays out. Again, we want to get to the labor negotiation stuff, and one of the things that we're going to keep talking about this as it updates. But Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball, like representing, really the owner side of things, put out a statement this week and talked about a lot of things that were being discussed when it comes to the labor negotiations in Major League Baseball. And everybody's got their sides of the matter, if you will, that they want to take their sides. And I want to support the millionaires over the billionaires and all this other stuff. How can you let billionaires try to make more money and all this other, nonsense? I'm in it for the betterment of Major League Baseball as a fan from a viewing perspective. Now, Rob Manfred had alluded to the fact that this is the current status of the collective bargaining agreement, of the competitive balance tax is a failed system. I mean, and he used the owners' meetings in New York to continue building the league's public case for a salary cap, which Frank and I are in agreement for. I think Major League Baseball needs this. He argues that baseball's current competitive balance tax system has failed to create enough competitive balance across the sport. The comments are significant because this is the clearest indication yet that the owners are prepared to make a salary cap the centerpiece of the next CBA, despite knowing it could trigger another labor war with the players. Manfred openly acknowledged concerns about repeating the 1994-1995 dispute that led to the 232-day strike and the cancellation of the World Series. However, he stopped short of saying whether Major League Baseball would be willing to endure a lengthy lockout to achieve a cap system. The key takeaway from this was Major League Baseball is no longer quietly discussing the cap internally. They're actively trying to get to a salary cap. And I think I think a lot of people think that if you support, the players, you're supporting you're trying to support the betterment of the workers and everything like that. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I think it's kind of a superficial understanding at best. I mean, sports leagues are not traditional businesses. I mean, they are joint ventures. And without that collective league structure, there is no Major League Baseball. Like the Dodgers and the Giants and the Padres and all these teams wouldn't exist as we know them. You would have exhibition squads like the Savannah Bananas or old school territory ball, independent teams playing whoever's around. That's not a league at all. What's fascinating is that this joint venture actually creates one of the most pro-labor environments in collective bargaining history. I mean, inside the league, the teams compete aggressively against each other for the same players, which drives salaries up. It's like one owner running multiple McDonald's and letting every store bid against the others for the best employees. The players aren't trapped. I mean, other leagues, other countries, other sports, entertainment gigs, they all have real options. And the monopoly talk that a lot of people throw out there is nonsense when it comes to baseball because Major League Baseball can't monopolize itself. Both sides are self-interested. That's business. Owners are protecting their investment. The union is protecting its members. That's fine. But let's not pretend the union is some noble force for the little guy while owners are cartoon villains. I mean, the real exploitation angle that you have to look at here that really gets ignored is the massive surplus value owners extract from arbitration-eligible players. The union had a chance to fix that in 1994. They have chances now to fix the arbitration-eligible player situation. Instead, the union, they fight the salary cap tooth and nail because that mostly hits the highest annual average value guys. That's like the top 1%. The ones whose giant contracts are partially funded by that very surplus value squeeze from the younger pre-free agent players. The union prioritizes protecting the top-end superstars over giving hundreds of regular big leaguers earlier, fair access to the open market. So when, people try to line up with the union and say they're like pro-player, if you're on the union side right now, you're not really pro-player, you're more pro-union, and there's a massive difference. The union is supposed to represent all of their players getting exploited in arbitration, but they'd rather preserve a huge revenue share for a small group of multimillionaires who are going to be rich either way. So it's not really fighting for the little guy. That's kind of protecting the already haves at the expenses of the have-nots still stuck in the system. I mean, Frank, the more we talk about this, about a salary cap, the less I find real validity to anybody that really argues against it.
Yeah, no, the salary tax has been a big issue. The players want a soft cap. That's really all there is to it. They want teams to be able to go over that luxury tax cap and not have any issues with it, but they also want the other teams to spend. It's looking more and more like the owners are going to win this. They've definitely got the court of public opinion on their side. They don't have any of the writers on their side, which, of course, why would they? They're the ones that have to deal with the players individually on a daily basis. So I don't see how a cap is not inevitable at this point for baseball.
I don't think so either. I don't know how it's not inevitable either. I mean, at this point, I think I think the owners can kind of sit back on this. I think they can play it out. I think they can let it play out. But I mean, like the whole like luxury tax deal is like it's so nonsensical.
Yeah.
In terms of thinking it's actually going to prevent teams from winning.
And again, for the 10 millionth time, no, we do not believe that a salary cap is going to eliminate the ability for dynasties. No, it is not going to eliminate teams from just being consistently bad. We know that dynasties and bad teams, pathetic teams, are going to still exist. What we are looking for and what we are after is a team that, if they are going to go on a Dodger-esque run where they are going to win every single World Series every single year, we want it to be because they are better and not because they have the ability to spend more money than everyone else. That's all we want.
President Trump today said, he said, you don't have they asked him about the salary cap thing. He wants a salary cap in baseball.
Okay.
Here's what it was. The reporter, do you think it's time for baseball to have a salary cap? And he's like, don't they sort of have one? And the reporter goes, it's a luxury tax threshold, but the teams that have the money are willing to spend it. Trump goes, you don't have a salary cap. You don't have a sport. I know so much about sports. That ending is so funny. Oh, man. You don't have a salary cap. You don't have a sport. I mean, every other league's got a salary cap at this point. Okay. I don't know what. And and players make a ton of money. But the reality is, as much as the Players Association wants to say they're fighting for their younger players, they're not. They're fighting for their top players that are going to be making money anyway. Just make the league play by the same rules. It's not rocket science. And as soon as the players figure that out, which I don't know if they ever will, or put their greed aside, maybe it will finally happen. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. When we come back, preview of Padres and Mets. We'll get to your phone calls as well as we wrap up the show for the week. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego Summer Sports Station 97 through the Fan. We're 63 days away from the MLB trade deadline, and the market is already taking shape, and it might be a problem. Right now, one name is dominating early conversations, Tarek Skubal. If Detroit falls out of contention, it becomes the biggest rental arm on the market, but he's not cheap, and he's not simple. Here's the issue. Too many teams are stuck in the middle. Boston is close to a wild card spot, but struggling. Baltimore, inconsistent, but still alive. Across the American League, there are way more maybe buyers than actual sellers, which creates a dangerous deadline dynamic. Lots of teams wanting to buy, not enough impact players available. So the real question is this: do we get a blockbuster deadline or a quiet one where everyone waits too long and prices never match reality? Major League Baseball season is starting to tilt into the midsummer pressure point where contenders separate from pretenders and front offices begin quietly laying the groundwork for July's trade deadline. We're still 63 days out from August 3rd, but around the league, the conversations are already heating up. And right now, this deadline is shaping up to be less about chaos and more about uncertainty.
Yeah, right now it's all circulating around Tarek Skubal and what the Detroit Tigers plan on doing with him. The biggest storyline forming so far is Tarek Skubal. At the start of the year, Detroit looked like a rising contender, but injuries, inconsistency, and a slide in the standings have shifted the conversation. Now Skubal, who's eligible for free agency after this season, sits at the center of speculation. And what makes the situation even more complex is value. He's not just an ace, he's a short-term rental with elite upside. And that means contenders won't be bidding prospects, or won't just be bidding prospects. They'll be paying salary too, roughly $11 million for the final stretch of the season. If Skubal is healthy and dominant when he returns, he instantly becomes the type of arm that can swing October. But if Detroit stays out of contention, the question becomes unavoidable. Do they hold him for a qualifying offer return or cash in a massive deadline haul?
Parity is creating this dealer's market problem across the American League specifically, and especially the middle is crowded. Teams like Boston and Baltimore aren't clearly buyers or sellers. They're stuck in that uncomfortable zone where they're close enough to justify staying aggressive, but inconsistent enough to justify selling. Boston, for example, has struggled offensively for weeks, yet is still within reach of a wild card spot. Baltimore has underperformed on the mound, but remains in striking distance. And that's the key issue league-wide. There's too many teams that believe they can still can get in. That means fewer true sellers, and that creates a classic deadline squeeze. Lots of buyers, not enough impact players available, and front offices are already warning this could be a thin market unless more teams collapse in the next month.
Yeah, and also you have aggressive general managers waiting to strike on these moves. Even in a cautious market, there are always a few teams willing to push buttons. Keep an eye on organizations like Philadelphia, Seattle, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and San Diego Padres, clubs with a history of aggressive midseason swings. We've seen this before: blockbuster bullpen moves, star rentals, and prospect-heavy deals that reshape the playoff race overnight. And if this market stays thin, that aggression becomes even more valuable. The teams willing to overpay might be ones that separate themselves come October.
Could we see surprise sellers? One of the more fascinating questions is whether underperforming contenders decide to pivot early. Houston is the most intriguing example. A slow start has raised internal questions about whether a reset is possible, though ownership has historically resisted full teardown moves. But if teams like Houston ever decided to listen on core pieces, the market would explode instantly. And that's the hidden tension here. A few unexpected sellers could completely flip a market that currently feels shallow.
Yeah, and ownership will be deciding who actually buys or sells. At this point in the season, it's not just baseball ops, it's ownership philosophy. We've seen it before. One owner pushes to keep a star, another green lights a tear down, and the entire market shifts. Teams like Tampa Bay, San Diego, and Minnesota all sit in interesting positions. Some are contenders with flexibility. Others have valuable veterans who could bring major returns if made available. And in Minnesota's case specifically, players like Joe Ryan and others could reshape the market if ownership, not necessarily the front office, decide to listen. This is where strategy meets economics and where deadlines truly are won and lost.
Yeah, 2027 labor cloud is quietly influencing decisions too. There's a long-term factor creeping into front office planning the upcoming collective bargaining situation. With uncertainty around the next CBA, some teams may start thinking more conservatively, protecting payroll flexibility in case of disruption or structural changes to the league's economic system. That kind of thinking doesn't always show up immediately, but it can absolutely impact deadline willingness. In short, though, some teams may choose caution now so they're not trapped later. I still think it will be a fun trade deadline as we approach it. done with a couple of months. We start June this week. We'll see what the Padres do, and we'll keep you updated on what's going on in Major League Baseball. .140 on a Friday. Didn't hand out too many fouls today, Frank.
No, it was a kind and relaxed foul out Friday. Unfortunately, I do see a foul in the waiting.
Yeah, there could be a foul potential here. Maybe he's joining us to just add the fouls. Let's get out to Dexter in Spring Valley, a.k.a. Draymond Green of phone callers in terms of fouls. Dexter, what's going on Foul Out Friday?
Hey, so Draymond's on the bench right now with 4 plus a technical. So I'm this week. So I'm gonna kind of do something a little spin here and drop some knowledge, more like history. And because you guys brought up a really, really good point earlier this hour, and that's how a lot of Padre fans are looking at this through the lens of a football fan, i.e., former Charger fans. And what's funny is San Diego has, everybody says San Diego's a sports town. I've lived here pretty much my entire life, and I can tell you that's not 100% the truth. San Diego, so far as sports goes, the fans were mainly, when we had an NFL team, we're all about football. Because if you look at us historically, we lost 2 NBA teams. Granted, one of them left because for the same reason the Chargers did. They saw the bright lights of Hollywood. We almost lost the Padres, not once, but twice. So, we're not really a quote-unquote sports team per se. We're a football team. We are now living in a time where, because of 97.3 The Fan, we're becoming a sports city, because you guys cover, the Padres. You're the flagship. But also, Woodsy used to be the PA guy for the lacrosse team for the Seals, right? Ben has made it, because of their show, they're starting to cover stuff like soccer, and they're starting to cover both women's soccer as well and women's sports in general. So we're starting to kind of get out of this cocoon of being a football team, an NFL city. But yeah, it's gonna, even though it's been almost a decade since they left, a lot of the fans who've been making the move over to baseball, yeah, they're looking for instant gratification, because again, baseball is 162 games. Football is only 16 to 18 games before the playoffs. So, the clock ticks from the minute the season starts, whereas for baseball, it's a little bit more mellower. Or if you get a chance, people, if you haven't done so, the late George Carlin go on YouTube. The late George Carlin did a routine comparing baseball and football.
Yes.
You watch that, that'll give you a great perspective on how to view the Padres. Because if you watch that, especially the long version, it's great, more details. That'll hopefully kind of, get everybody to, like, if we get to the All-Star break and we're still like this, yeah, okay, panic time. But we still got a little bit of a cushion,
We appreciate the phone call, Dexter. Thanks again on a Friday. Let's get out to Ron in La Mesa. Ron, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Well, first of all, ditto to Derek. I agree with everything he said. And, Frank, I know you think I'm calling in to rip your New York roots, but that's the farthest thing from the truth, my friend, because we both suck right now, so I don't have the moral high ground like I usually do. Hey, the other thing is, guys, on a more serious note, the labor negotiation goes so much deeper than just the players and the owners. There are thousands upon thousands of minions like myself who work for these organizations that if they have a work stoppage, we get slammed too. And when it comes to Ron, that means my golf slush fund doesn't have the money that I need in it to partake in my favorite passion. So it's not just us, it's the restaurateurs, baseball goes so much deeper than just the billionaires and the millionaires. It really is a trickle down economy. And it's unfortunate. And I'm praying that they don't have a work stoppage, because I don't really have a whole lot more I can do besides annoy you guys once or twice a week. So let's hope they get it done. And boys, have a great weekend. We'll talk at you.
I appreciate that, Ron. Yeah, it does affect a lot of people, obviously. It affects a lot of people. It affects us. We're you talk about nothing for we've done that multiple times now. It's not fun. It affects a lot of people, obviously, that aren't making the millions and billions of dollars. But those are the ones that, are really going to fall through the cracks when it comes to this labor negotiation stuff. Yeah, Wilbur. Just their show, guys. Not that we ever talk about any other sport on this show. Like we have those YouTube videos in the middle of all the shows, in the commercial breaks that break down all the other sports teams, Frank. I don't know if does Dexter mix those or something? Does he not see those? Anyway.
Figured I'd throw that disclaimer up on the bottom of the screen.
You're so proud about that disclaimer.
Well, I mean,
as soon as Ron and LeMesa mentioned anything about the labor negotiations, you perked up and had a smirk on your face like, I can use this now.
Exactly, yes.
It's fantastic. Hey, by the way, you know what else this show does? We cover food.
We do, yes.
Did you guys see what's going on at the fair?
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
Yes, let's talk about fair food.
Fair food.
Fair food for the next 7 minutes.
I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this in the noon lunchtime hour, but the San Diego County Fair runs June 10th, and I know it's the Del Mar Fair, but that's what they wanted to be called, so that's what we're going to say. The Del Mar Fair is June 5th through July 5th. It's going to be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. The theme this year is Once Upon a Fair. They open up next week on Wednesday, and they got some insane food items out there for you that we're going to talk about a little bit. I mean, they just get all this stuff gets crazier and crazier. It's not like just simple fair food anymore. I mean, look at this. I'm pulling this from. We were watching on YouTube. I'm pulling this from the what's it called? SanDiegoville.com. They had a little thing on this. So you could see some of the pictures. But they got, the first thing on the list is gas lamp birria melt but from between the buns. Looks delicious. Birria melt. Mozzarella stuffed chorizo Sonoran dog from Flacco's. Bacon wrapped Mexican chorizo sausage with mozzarella and served on a bolillo roll with beans, mayo, mustard, pico, and cotija cheese. Are you kidding me with that right there? What else we got here? Chicken shawarma wrap from Chicken Charlie's. You also got the birria pizza. They got birria everything right now. Birria pizza from Pat's Pizza. This is diabolical right here at the fair. Tailgate and taquito bucket from Paddock Club. Guess it's all at the Del Mar Fair. Shareable bucket filled with taquitos, guacamole, pico, lettuce, cilantro, cotija, and spicy chicharrones. Look at that thing. And a bucket. Unbelievable. What else we got here? I don't know if I trust anything Oyster House, but they got lobster nachos from Stizzy's Oyster House. What is this? This looks pretty good. Baja Bacon Birria Bomb from Bacon Nation. Is everything birria this year? What is that? Churro Dog from West Coast Weenies. There's a place called West Coast Weenies, Frank. What do you think the casings are?
Phrasing?
What do you think the casings are on the West Coast Weenies Churro Dog?
I don't know.
Cinnamon casings? Sweet and savory hot dog or cheese-filled battered roll, fried golden, coated in cinnamon sugar, and finished with a glaze.
You know what the first thing you guys are going to hear too after the show is over, watching all of this stuff right now on the YouTube?
An SD Fat Loss commercial?
Hi, I'm Ben Higgins for SD Fat Loss.
That's why this show doesn't endorse SD Fat Loss. What else we got here? The pineapple guava spam bao bun from Boba King. Delicious. Baked potato. We got what is that? Street corn baked potato. Interesting. San Diego Spudwich from Australian battered potatoes. Crispy battered potatoes served sandwich style on an artisan bun with chipotle sauce. That's not bad. That's not bad. A date in Del Mar from Candyland. Apple wrapped in dates and pecans. That's pretty good. They got a cherry limeade float out there. They got a watermelon mint lemonade from Boba King. Pineapple Dole Whip. You like ube?
Never met them.
It's like a purple potato, I think.
Oh, no.
They have an ube funnel cake from Chicken Charlie's. Funnel cake topped with ube ice cream, ube powder, and whipped cream and ube sauce. It's a lot of ube. Oh, wow. Fabuloso flan funnel cake. That looks delicious.
I mean, if it's going to put me out, I'll have it.
Kimchi quesadilla from Taco Ramen. Pozole egg rolls? Are you kidding me? How about that? Now I'm starving. Sweet mac and heat crunch potato from Corn Star. Corn Star. That's the name of your place? Corn Star and Hot Potato Club?
Phrasing.
Jeez, the fare, man. Sweet potato loaded with caramel, mac and cheese, jalapenos, and sugar. Peach cobbler heat carriage chicken from Disco Chicken. You got Nashville hot chicken fried mac and cheese balls. That's money. How about a blueberry brie smash dog from Ricky's California Corn Dog? Smashed hot dog served with brie cheese and blueberry jam on a buttery croissant. Wow. That's amazing. Oh, look at this. Cookie butter crunch chocolate strawberry cup from TJ's Ice Cream. That looks pretty good.
Go Aztecs in the chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Braden's texting his friend. We need to go eat at the fair.
Tiramisu Temptation from Old West Cinnamon Rolls. I'm just distracting you from the Padres offense at this point. Fried
distracting me from who they're playing too, so keep going.
Bacon wrapped churros with the dulce de leche from Bacon Nation. It's not a bacon stuff. Wow, got a waffle sundae. This is ridiculous. Cinnamon Crunch Cheesecake Rice Krispie Cone from Sticky Finger Treats.
Okay. You had me. You had me at Rice Krispie covered cheesecake.
Totzilla from Corn Star and Hot Potato Club. Tater tots loaded with mac and cheese, bacon, jalapenos, and flamin' hot Cheetos. The Wizard of Asada Spud from Spud Ranch. Who comes up with this stuff? Carne asada loaded baked potato with avocado, corn, pickled onions, cotija, and chipotle crema.
Someone who's clearly having a good day. Bacon wrapped pizza wand?
What is a pizza wand? Cheesy pizza core wrapped in bacon and glazed in honey.
Oh boy.
Bacon wrapped pizza wand. Do we gotta go to the fair?
Phrasing.
Do we gotta go to the fair and do fair food videos? Humpty Dumpty ramen deviled eggs.
Your dime, maybe.
A very hungry caterpillar garden pizza from Pat's Pizza. Look, it makes a little like ratatouille caterpillar. With smiley ricotta cheese face. Oh my God, there's just way too much stuff. If you want to check it out, go to sandiegoville.com. All right, Padres and Mets. What do you expect out of the Mets this weekend?
Nothing.
What's your bold prediction?
Mets lose.
Mets lose. That's super bold, isn't it? Bold prediction for me, Manny Machado hits 500 this weekend. That's your bold prediction.
I'm not laughing because I think it's ridiculous. I'm laughing because I think it'll be higher.
Wow. This is what the doctor ordered the Mets. Talk to you guys next week.